The reason why I wanted to play this video is because he's going to give us 5 new conservative policies to take your country back. So it's like, how can we defeat the left kind of like ideas? And we'll see if any of them are good, or at least from his perspective, legitimately going to somehow get that country back or not. And I don't think he gets to it right away. There's a lot of spiel beforehand, which is would still be fun to... I say fun, what I mean is we'll have things to say about it. I think I'm sharing? Piano? Is that true?
Yeah, you are.
Here we go.
And here we go.
Isn't it weird that he starts off with the Joker? That seems a little on the nose, doesn't it?
Yeah, how it does.
And here
Seems a little bit strange.
Yeah. It's a little strange. For those of you who have never seen a John Doyle clip, this is the Heck Off Tommy introduction to the John Doyle channel.
John Doyle in. Heck off, commie.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Heck Off
it's
Commie.
this
It is
dude.
good to be back.
Yeah.
New studio.
So yes, he's back. He went away for a while. This video was actually in June. What I told people earlier on is he has a new video out that's like more recent, but it's not good. It's just him walking up and down the street trying to talk to people about drag queen story time shit. Also notice this new thing he has here. It says the future is, and he scratched out the F and E so it says male. The future is male. What a normal human being. This guy, totally normal. Like, look at the gun on the wall and the helmet. Totally normal human being, you know? Stuck in the 1950s with his introduction and his Heck Off Commie sign. Super. And there's a Jesus Christ bobblehead on the table, but you can't see it behind my face. Totally normal. Super normal dude. And he talks really fast, by the way.
Mode activated, content mode activated. We're very excited about it. I hope you are as well. And we're still fine-tuning everything as far as the shots and the lights and the audio goes, all that stuff. So this probably isn't the ultimate and optimal setup for the new studio, but we'll get it locked down as we go along. We'll make it better. This is not even my final form, and such was the case with the last studio as well. So we anticipated this, but the problem is that very few others will take this into account. So got to get used to the new setup. Got to tweak the colors and the lights and the angles and stuff as we go along. Maybe one day we'll even unlock camera 3, the forbidden angle. Who knows? But anyways, we're going to get into this list here, and I do have to say that I've enjoyed the time off because it's allowed for things to sort of like ferment intellectually, and I'd estimate that I probably got about 9% smarter in the time off, so that's cool. And I'll explain my absence at the end of the video so that we can just get right into it now. But just rest assured that there is a method to my madness. The HOC network has expanded to be larger than ever before. We have people everywhere. We have them in media and government and local government, and we have their attention. We are literally the Heck Off communist octopus, just have our tentacles everywhere, which...
I mean, it's amazing that he's using Nazi propaganda to make his point that he's gonna be the... like there's so many layers to this because he's using Nazi propaganda to make his point about the octopus image, but he's saying he's gonna be the octopus even though his enemy is communist. Hence, Heck Off Commie. Oh no, I appreciate free speech. I won't be rude as long as you are chill. Sure. Maybe. We'll see. I mean, so did the other person earlier who then decided to use some ableism. So hopefully we can stay cordial.
Which of course is necessary because we're trying to shift our country in the right direction. And to do that, we need to have the attention of powerful people, along with, of course, making ourselves as powerful as possible. And that's going to get into the first thing that I want to talk about before we get into the list, which is institutional power, the necessity and urgency of institutional power. I'm going to monologue about that for a bit here, and then we'll get into the list of 5 policies that I've aggregated. We're going to do 10 of them at first, but it's been a while, so we're going to have to microdose John Doyle. But some of them might confuse you, some of them you might disagree with, but I will explain why. They are absolutely imperative, and some of them are even below the radar to where we could probably get these into the mainstream discussion and even enacted in certain states within like the next 2 years. But first, we must address the elephant in the room, which is that Father's Day is right around the corner.
Okay, yeah, fuck the advertisements here. I don't know when he stops.
Gun belt with a proprietary talent buckle and premium.
Sorry, what was that?
Can you type something in the chat for me?
Yeah, what do you want me to type?
Check out every...
Can you type /mod Nightbot?
/mod Nightbot. Did it work? No message appeared in the chat, but
Yeah, we're good. Okay, thanks. That was it.
oh, sad, no permission.
holster
Yeah, we have a new Nightbot, but Vienno's going to be operating it. I don't know how it works or functions yet, but Vienno's going to be on it.
comes with a lifetime guarantee. If it's not a perfect fit, send it back for a full refund. It's not even a big deal. WeThePeopleHolsters.com. That is WeThePeopleHolsters.com/Doyle. Promo code Doyle. Very epic. Anyways, we are less than a year into the Biden administration, and things are getting much worse at a much quicker pace than we anticipated. Like I'm sure I don't need to remind you, inflation, gas prices, housing bubble, censorship, targeting political opposition with federal police, etc. The point being,
I want, like, why is there inflation, and was that Biden's fault? I mean, I've seen contradictory reports on inflation. From what I understand, I don't think we actually are experiencing inflation, or at least not inflation that's going to remain consistent. I think part of it is still just reverberations of the lockdowns and other sorts of things. The other thing there about the canceling, I mean, like, weren't those happening while Trump was president? And are they worse now that Biden is president? Like, I just don't follow the logic there. I mean, they've been complaining about cancel culture since fucking 2014. It's not like Biden came and it became exponentially worse. And I don't think
Jody,
Biden's been doing any of the canceling.
Don't you realize that everything changed the second that Biden became president because liberal propaganda is actually true?
I don't remember them speaking in terms of like Trump and Mike Pence. It was always just Trump. And I wonder the reason why they always go Biden, Kamala Harris is because they want to make it sound like brown lady in charge, you know? There's like an element of that.
Yeah, because like it's the blah, 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 silly, dopey Biden. He's just having his strings pulled or whatever the fuck. Like,
yeah. And it's like, what has he done? They did a recovery package. They implemented many policies, including money for parents with children. They have an infrastructure bill on the way. Scary. So scary. They're really moving us towards some sort of like left paradise, you know? Jesus.
That if you are tired of losing and you actually care about your country, then you need to understand and be comfortable with the knowledge that we are going to have to break free from the fake conservatism of the last several decades that got us here in the first place. It does not make any sense to continue to run the same plays that have literally never worked for you at any point, obviously. And so as we get into some of these policies, you might think to yourself, well, now wait a minute, well, that doesn't sound very conservative to me. And there are two things that I will say to that. Firstly, conservatism properly understood is simply that which conserves the traditional American society. That is the ends. It is not an allegiance to abstract principles or means. It is an allegiance to the ends, to actually conserving something. And in case you need a reminder, we have failed to conserve anything on virtually any issue in the last 80 years.
So Matt Walsh brought it back 40 years. This guy's going way back 80 years. 80 years. And they failed to conserve anything in the past 80 years? What the fuck was Ronald Reagan? Like, what definition of conservative has American in it? I mean, like, yeah, it's conserving traditional America. What the fuck is traditional? Like, there's so many just, like, loaded words here. Like, what is traditional America? Like, at what point was it traditional? Like, the moment they signed the Constitution, nothing can change. So he shouldn't even be doing this show. I mean, he's got a microphone here. He's got a sign here that didn't come around till like the 50s. What are you getting Nightbot to do? Oh my god, if you type in off Haven, it says stop manipulating me. There is, I mean, the funny thing is, you mentioned off Haven, and we should bring this into our lexicon, because even what John Doyle is saying here is sort of like, we need to learn how to like disengage from the institutions that are promoting leftism and like become us and be the conservatives we should have been 80 years ago or something. And Matt Walsh had like similar ideas where it's like it's just about trust. You got to say no to all that degeneracy and just trust me. It's the same strategy they all fucking use. Just say no. Stop manipulating me.
I therefore reject any input from neoconservatives who don't get it yet or who don't have the intellectual capacity to ever get it because, frankly,
This guy scares
I
me
understand
too.
what's happening. I understand why it's happening. I understand who's behind it because I've done the reading, and that's the difference. Lots of people can only conceptualize conservatism in terms of what they've heard on talk radio or cable television or whatever. And so given that, let me ask you this, and this is the second thing. Why do you think that you were allowed to hear that? And I'm not saying that these people are necessarily bad people or that they sold out or something, but why would the system allow for anything that would pose a challenge to it to be broadcast en masse? Notice how they only started censoring people once there was a legitimate effort to push back against the system, once we had a candidate who was actually a threat to the establishment in this country, to the swamp, to the deep state. And so
No, like, what? I mean, for one, it contradicts his own narrative that, like, you haven't had true conservatism for 80 years. So haven't they been canceling this whole time?
Is
And
it
then
80 years?
he said 80 years. You haven't had true conservatism in this country for the past 80 years.
Who the fuck was a true conservative 80 years ago?
I don't like, but he thinks conservatism is traditional conservatism, traditional American conservatism, whatever the fuck that is. But even here, it's like there was canceling. Like I remember the whole like we just watched the James Lindsay stuff, and he was saying cancel the atheist movement got destroyed back in 2011 based on like a woman speaking up at a conference, right? Like this is their idea of cancel culture pre-exists Donald Trump becoming president. Yet he's stating that like no one was canceled until Trump got president, and then somehow all the institutions turned, which is not how I remember it. Never had censorship before Trump. Notice as well, it's like there's clearly censorship against left-wing positions right now, including professors who speak out against Israel. You have censorship. You have people that like gaslight and gang up on people online in terms of like speaking out in favor of hormone therapy and stuff like this. This shit is happening right now, but to the left as well. So it's like this is why like I hate this notion of cancel culture. But he wants to think that like somehow the institutions are doing this now. When have the institutions fully accepted trans people? Like even though like they might be like gesturing for it now, corporations still don't have a good track record when it comes to that. It's just super fucking weird.
Tim made a good point. Years ago, the 1940s, I'm guessing you think America got woke when it rejected Hitler.
Yeah. You know, you're probably not wrong. You're probably not wrong.
to all the well-meaning patriots out there, all the good people out there who just want us to return to a libertarian society, just like the founding fathers wanted, I understand that, and I sympathize with that, but we...
Well, notice here, so we're going to get to basically what you're saying here, Tukar. It's the right and moral and traditional to censor leftists. He's pro-censorship. We've watched a video of his before where he's been pro-censorship, and here he is saying the libertarians are wrong because he's going to cut against freedom and go, we need to, like, silence the left. My guess is the movie he's going to make right here.
We need to understand that it is literally the same thought process as, well, that wasn't true communism. Well, this time we'll get it right. And it's like, well, that wasn't true small government conservatism. This time we'll get it right. Because the reality of the situation is that right now, we're not suffering from the consequences of inauthentic conservatism, but rather we are suffering from the consequences of what we regard to be actual conservatism, which exists to distract and drain time and money from well-meaning patriots who actually care about this country. These people do not play to win. They play for lobbying contracts. Virtually everything that they do is performative. It is not real. Conservatism has existed in this country as basically a form of controlled opposition, which seeks to criticize, mock, and most irresponsibly and dangerously occupy crucial volume and resources without actually doing anything to push back against the left. It is all performative. Take the recent issue. Transgender girls competing in women's sports. Biological men competing in women's sports. It's ridiculous. The left have absolutely lost their minds, folks. How can...
He's running by so many ideas that aren't necessarily connecting for me. So he's saying most conservatives bad because they're just controlled opposition in that they're not actually fighting the left. It's just performative. Yet those same people that he's calling performative are speaking out against the thing that he just pointed out right now. They are speaking out against trans women in sports. Who on the right is not speaking out against trans women in sports? That's their big issue right now. Maybe I should let him finish so I can I just feel like I had to pause it or he was going to talk forever and not make a fucking point.
Men compete in women's sports. It's not fair to all of our female athletes. Does that ring a bell? We're familiar with the talking points. Let me ask you a question now. How exactly is your day-to-day affected by the collapse of the institution of women's athletics? This is not to say that biological men should be allowed to compete in women's sports. And actually, don't even call them biological men. That's just ceding more ground to the left rhetorically. Why would we need to use biologically as a modifier on the word man? Just say men. But yeah, this is not to say that men should be allowed to compete in women's sports. This is simply to say that the whole issue is totally performative. I quite frankly cannot think of a less important, less consequential noun on American soil than women's sports.
You know what's super weird about this? He's saying this, okay? And it's bigoted, it's transphobic, it's shitty, this guy's a garbage human being. Okay? But he is right that this topic holds no weight. It's very superficial. It's like, why are we discussing it? So I can see a point that I don't like, but he's making it, okay? That being said, his most recent video is literally him walking around downtown Texas making jokes about trans people. So, like, wait, if you can acknowledge that it's vapid, then why are you investing any time in this whatsoever? I mean, it's clear that it does mean something to him because he's making a big stink about even using the word biological here. So it does mean something to him. But he's trying to make some point that it's like, I don't know, it's very, very weird. Damn, he's performative too. They're all performative. I'm curious where this is going to go, though. He's going to be like, we need to, stop making it about trans women in sports. Instead, what we need to do is abolish women from participating in anything.
Oh, well, but young girls won't get as many trophies now because they have to compete against transgender girls. Hell yeah, that's male excellence right there. Let's go, boys.
Jesus
but seriously,
Christ.
no, I understand the problem. I understand the concerns. I understand the importance of athletics and competition. I do. But my problem is that the discussion in itself is not a serious discussion. The issue of boys with gender identity disorder competing in women's sports is about 10 years downstream of the actual problem, which is that we as a country are entertaining the idea that gender, sex, biology, hormones, it's all unimportant, it's all insignificant. And so what I'll say is this. Yes, I believe that men should be prohibited from participating in women's sports, absolutely. But I also believe that propagating gender theory and its adjacent strains should be prohibited in any institution receiving public dollars. Because if you don't do that,
teaching anything about gender should be prohibited. But it's the left that wants to censor things. Meanwhile, every single fucking conservative I cover somehow wants to censor things. I don't understand. Like, this is the thing that frustrates me. I do these videos. I post them online. And people comment, people who are fans of John Doyle or people who are fans of James Lindsay, and they comment on me being like, well, they're not really saying that. Well, they don't really want to do that. He wants to prohibit something. He is trying to do the censoring. He just wants to censor the things that he wants to censor, and everything that you want to censor, he doesn't want to censor because he wants to be racist. He wants to be transphobic, and he doesn't want you to tell him not to be. He isn't libertarian. No, he explicitly states that he's not libertarian. Need to prohibit talking about gender to bring back to yeah.
That, then you're just going to end up right back there anyways. As it would turn out, there's no such thing as, well, we just want to be free to do what we want in the privacy of our own home. That was a lie. The slippery slope exists. And if you think that you can deal with something down the mountain without shutting off the water at the top of the mountain, then you are not a serious person. You are not having a serious discussion. And this is the fundamental problem with the practical application of libertarianism. The problem isn't necessarily the ideas, but rather that our current context does not allow for those ideas. Libertarianism, the society of the founding founding fathers wanted, however you'd like to describe it, it is not possible unless the society is a unified, moral, and religious people. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, said this: if you are going to opt to live and let live, to not seize power, to maintain the power vacuum, then the other people have to agree to do this as well. But the reality of our situation is that the people in our country now, the communists, they don't want to leave that power on the table. They want to take it for themselves and use it against you.
What?
The communists.
Let's be real. As a communist, I do want to take the power from this asshole. Let's be totally real here. I mean, like, he's not wrong. It's just like, it's not a conspiracy. It's also not, I think, what Nike is doing when they have rainbow flags on their Twitter account, you know? It's this guy is fascist. Like, there's no other way of putting it. This guy's a fucking fascist, and it's amazing to me that his content is still up on YouTube and YouTube gets to profit off of it. Like, it's fucked up. I don't get it. Who in politics doesn't want power? I don't. God forbid. God forbid these people want power. Notice as well that he's trying to sneak in this like homogeneity argument, which is that like you can't have a society unless the society is completely homogenous and there's no difference and we all agree and stay together in a tight-knit like little group or whatever. So he's basically arguing you need to have a society of which there is no disagreement, and disagreement is bad, and you all must be religious and believers and believe in God, or else you're bad. That is literally what he just said. Fantastic.
This is not debatable. They openly admit this.
Christian
And so
fascists.
the problem with this small government conservatism that we've all been sold, aka the don't do anything because then you're just like the enemy, who is winning, by the way, conservatism. The problem isn't that it's a bad idea on paper, just that it's only possible if those forces who seek to destroy that society are suppressed. Because if you allow that fire to sustain itself, it will spread, and before you know it, it'll be too late to stop it. The founding fathers knew this. We knew this before the neoconservatives co-opted the American right and made it into an impotent embarrassment. General Patton, General MacArthur, all of the greatest Americans that you and I could think of, they all knew this. And so I would make the argument that it is time for the libertarian types to join forces with us, to follow the logical conclusion of the NAP, of the Gadsden flag, to understand that what they're doing to this country is an act of aggression that will destroy it if you don't do anything about it, and that they are treading on you, and it is time to fight back. It is time to...
Yikes. Big fucking yikes. This little fascist is fucking horrifying. I mean, he's literally saying he wants to suppress anyone who does not agree with his Christian values, and that we need to fight back against them. Literally need to fight back against all these people that want to turn America away from some sort of Christian fascist state. So, and like the thing, this is. Yeah, I hate it too, but it's propaganda for young kids, which is the terrifying part of this, you know?
It's more just like, I hate when we cover this dude. Like, he sucks so fucking much. It's just like depressing.
Yeah, I mean, like he fits into the same demographic that promotes like Nick Fuentes and shit like this, right? Like, the only reason I'm covering him is because like people talk about him. He gets platformed at these conservative conferences. Like, he's seen as like the up and coming youth of the conservative party. And what is his like statement? His statement is we need to fight, whatever that means, the incoming communists that work at Nike so that we can return to our theocratic state where we all agree and there's no disagreement. But it's the left that believes in cancel culture. Remember that. It's the left that believes in cancel culture. He just wants a theocratic state that suppresses leftists. Suppression is different than cancel, right? They're like totally different. You don't want to know how many people follow. I won't tell you then. You don't need to know.
To bite them. We have to gain institutional power. We have to wield it. But the response is always, well, but if we use the government, won't they just use it back? Understand, it is already being used against you. The corporations are being used against you. That means worst case scenario, even according to you, and better believe it, you've done the math. We're just going to be back to square one. And so
he conflates corporations with governments here. Like, the corporations are not the government. Like, they're maybe mutual beneficial in many ways, and there's lobbying and other like entanglements, but they are not the same thing.
So given that, and given that I'd actually like to be able to raise a family here someday, I've concluded that we may as well give it the old college try, right? Let's actually have some balls. Let's have a competent right-wing government for the first time in decades, and frankly, probably ever. Because if we lose, we are going to be regarded as the greatest, most impressively pathetic group of people to ever exist, that we let our country be destroyed by communists, literal communists who masturbate to cartoon animals because we were too comfortable watching Netflix and browsing TikTok, blowing the home court advantage to literal communist perverts. That will be the biggest L in the history of mankind. And so the last thing I'll say about this.
What the fuck?
You know, the funny thing is, like, we've talked before about like bronies that are like into like Nazi My Little Pony stuff, and then there's like Nazi furries. Like it's like weird that he thinks that that somehow it's like a communist degeneracy thing, but their side's just as much as into that shit.
Yeah. But I mean, explicit solidarity with the like communist furries.
Yeah.
I do hope they get John Doyle.
Yeah. Pro-communist furry action.
Yeah, that is an official statement of the channel and or podcast.
Oh my god.
This before we get into the list is that the reason we used to be a much happier, much more unified, much more free country isn't because that was just like the natural state of our existence. It's because to be a communist 100 years ago was almost exactly what it's like to be a right-wing person now in 2021. It's almost 1-to-1. And when I say communist, I'm speaking broadly about the coalition which all of these interest groups are ultimately serving. They're anti-American, they're anti-family, they're anti-God, they're anti-white, they're degenerate, etc.
This guy's a Nazi. He's a fucking like this. Hitler has said the same fucking thing, has he not? That felt like Hitler's speech to me. Is it not?
Listen, not all fascists are Nazis, you know?
That's pretty fucking close.
No, but yeah, but like, American has its own homegrown fascism, you know?
True.
We know they're fucked up far righters, even if and that they want to do genocide, even if they aren't wearing the flag, you know?
But notice, like, nothing he's like, as a communist, what did he like? Nothing he said here is like anything.
Person now in 2021, it's almost 1-to-1. And when I say communist, I'm speaking
So this is what he means by communists. Let's see, like, how we
broadly about the coalition which all of these interest groups are ultimately serving. They're anti-American, they're anti-family, they're anti-God.
So, like, anti-American, yes, 100%. Anti-family? I mean, I have a family.
In the nuclear family sense? Yeah, you know?
I mean, but the difference is we don't think that it is, like, an inherent or, like, the natural state. But it doesn't mean we're against it. If anyone wants to do it, have fun, right? Right? Like, it's not a, like...
Yeah, like, the fact that people who are related to each other hang out is not the issue. It's the structure of, like, nuclear families and, like, how, things are centered around the control of parents and fatherhood, especially. Is like...
Right.
Like, the family is an expression of, like, capitalist patriarchy.
No, I was going to say, like,
that.
especially if you're saying the nuclear family implies, like, the patriarchal idea. 100% abolish that shit. But, like, two people and kids coexisting within a unit, within some sort of framework, like, I don't think any communist is going to say, no! The issue is hierarchies, or any, like, unjustified hierarchies or stuff like that. Like, obviously some hierarchy is going to exist in the sense that I'm not going to let my child place their hand on the stove, I will have power and go, child, no, do not do this, Actually, families
Tim, thank you for serving. Yeah, thank you for serving. Be braver than the troops.
The next one too. Okay,
God, they're anti-white.
Anti-God, anti-white. So anti-God, it's a mixed bag. I mean, like, Karl Marx was an atheist, but it wasn't like the motivating factor. And there's tons of people who are Marxists or communists that believe in God.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm right here. Like, yeah,
You know,
it's
for example. And I happen to don't believe in God, but hey, my co-host believes in God, and we get along. So it's clearly not the motivating principle here. As for anti-white, as whiteness, 100%. Again, that has to do with hierarchies, unjust hierarchies, right? And yes, Requetus, if that is your name, I guess loosely a communist. You can call me that. That's fine. I don't fit easily into any of the various camps of communism. I do appreciate. I used to self-identify as more like anarchist communist, anarcho-communism, but I just use the general label communist now, or Marxist if I'm feeling spicy. Oh, you are communists. I understand. I personally disagree. Okay. Well, I mean, like, hey, disagreement on that point's okay. So long as you're not a fascist, we can find some common ground, try to talk it out, work together on issues right now. You know, we probably agree on some things, but it's these people that we are our sworn enemies. I don't think there is common ground between me and a John Doyle here. In fact, he literally wants to destroy me. So there's gonna be
Didn't he
no
have
getting along on
that one
front.
video he was talking about like burying communists.
Yes.
Like he was very explicit, like we need them dead. Yeah. Woohoo.
Well, I think we would disagree on most things. Well, if you're a fascist, then probably. Jody most likes to say communist because it's the most provocative way of saying you're an anti-hierarchical leftist. I guess so, but it's nice to talk.
They're degenerate, etc. And actually, on that note, another important.
So we're
Sorry.
degenerate.
It's a Carlist.
I am a Carlist. I don't even know what is that. Like George Carlin?
It's like a silly monarchist thing that, like,
Monarchy.
I don't know. I think it's a very funny thing to
Why?
identify as politically.
I mean, you could come to Canada. We pretty much already have your state. Oh. I am from Navarra. I don't even know where that is. Also because he loves Stalin's purges. Christ. I do not, in fact, love Stalin's purges. I would definitely consider myself not in the Stalinist camp. The only defense you'll get from me in regards to a Stalin is that I don't believe everything that America says about Stalin. But I do not like a lot of the things that he did. Everyone's propaganda sucks, is what I'm saying.
Important thing that no one talks about, why we were fighting communism. The fight against communism, it wasn't about wanting to be able to, like, run to Walmart at 11 p.m., get a pint of Ben & Jerry's and a phone charger. No, it actually had very little to do with capitalism. It was about the soul of the nation. It was about the fact that communists were godless, and we knew that. And we knew that without God, we would decay into basically where we are now. There's a reason that we mandated that in God we trust be inscribed on our currency in 1955. Your grandparents probably saw that change happen, and it wasn't because we loved capitalism and consumption, though the irony is that as we've lost God and we've become decadent and greedy and the money that we so idolize still has that inscription, that's beside the point. The point is that
Decadent, greed, like this is fascist talking points 101. It's everything that fascists say. The Weimar Republic, they're accepting of all kinds of sexual deviancy, they're degenerates, they become decadent with their art, and they're frivolous with their spending, and we need a strong daddy figure to come in here and reinstate the German Volkish faith and restore the nation. It's the same fucking shit over and over again. Like, why can't we realize, like, he wants to say that their side is strong and will be successful. How long did Nazi Germany last? If anyone is fucking weak, it is fascists. Realize that and stop buying into this shit.
if you showed an American man in the 1950s, what his country would become within the next 100 years, he'd want to go back to the drawing board. But anyways, think about that. Why were you never taught about how we used to treat communists the same way that they now treat right-wing people? It's because that is what is necessary to defeat them and actually conserve and protect the nation. They don't want that. They like it when you think that you have principles. I'm going to beat you in the marketplace of ideas, which, by the way, they'll just kick you out of anyways because the left can act with total impunity because they have virtually all of the institutional power and you have none of it.
Notice what he's saying here. He's like, they want to not let you participate in the marketplace of ideas. Yet he's going, but we need to retake those institutional powers like we did in the 1950s when communists were completely silenced. We need to take back that power and continue to silence them. it literally, like, just say, I just want my side to win. It's like making the argument that they want to silence us and that's bad. Why do you care? Because you want to silence us. Of course there's going to be a conflict then. Like, you're already giving the game away. Just fucking, take the leap. Just say, like, I'm in favor of censorship. I like cancel culture. I want to cancel the left. This guy is so weak. How can you say that? He has a gun on his wall.
100 years ago, we used to target communists in the government, in academia, in the media. You'd be fired, blacklisted, maybe even charged. Now look where we are. Tables have turned. By the 1960s, they'd taken over academia. By the 2000s, right-wing thought was non-existent. By the 2010s, any student or faculty who dissented would be targeted. You will be made to conform. They did the same thing with similar timelines in public education, big business, media, Hollywood, etc. And so we have no idea how to push back. We are fish in a barrel. There are no right-wing organizations dedicated to getting individuals to strategize and infiltrate these apparatuses to take.
The Federalist Society is responsible for making the Supreme Court of the United States a majority conservative body. What the fuck is he talking about? The conservatives have gerrymandered the shit out of the United States such that in the last few elections, even though Democrats received way more than a majority of the votes, their share of the houses in both the Congress and the Senate are way lower than they should be given the proportion of the vote. He's mad because a few corporations know that certain social signifiers are now culturally accepted and to reject them is bad. So being pro-LGBTQ in a very sort of like consumer-friendly way, that to him is signs that somehow the communists have taken over and now are enshrined in the institutions of power. Even though having the CEOs of these billionaire companies give a tip of the hat, hey there, on certain social issues is not communism. It's not communism. And if that is the only institution we have, we are not winning. We are not winning at all. In fact, it is hard to say that we're winning when we've had, in America, I mean, Canada has its own problems, but in America, you had Reagan, you had Bush, you had Clinton, you had Bush. Obama was still terrible, but out of this category was probably the best. And then you had Trump. Tell me how all those conservatives, and yes, I consider Bill Clinton an economic conservative. How did this make the leftists become in power? Fucking absurd.
Them back.
It's also
partially
like,
because we're too busy.
It's also like, the communists, they're so anti-America and now they're in power. Why the fuck is America still a thing then, bud? Like, if we were in power, it would be gone. We don't do that.
I mean,
we're not doing one of those.
The family would be gone, God would be gone, white people would be gone. I mean, he listed out the things that we're for, and all those things still remain, sadly. Yeah. It's like one of those things where we're so powerful and but we're also weak. It's the fascist fucking line, We're so powerful, we control everything, but we're all weak and degenerate, and that's what's going to lead to our inevitable collapse, even though we were powerful enough to obtain the power somehow. Yet we're going to destroy everything because we're weak and degenerate. And we're not successful at destroying everything because we're weak and degenerate. But they need to be the powerful things they always were and fight it back and achieve motherland America.
Raising $100,000 to totally own AOC because we act like literal children. We have no right-wing George Soros. We don't even have our military anymore. Side note.
You have no right-wing George Soros. Who's Charles Koch? Who's Robert Shillman? Who's the Mercer family? Who fucking supports you? You're clearly getting money. All the people who fund the Daily Caller, Tucker Carlson, the Daily Wire, Drudge, the financiers of InfoWars. Like, the right wing has all the fucking money. What are you talking about? I know we have no right-wing George Soros except almost every other billionaire. Yeah, exactly. Like, the world that they live in is just phenomenal. There was something else that you said that I can't remember.
Infiltrate these apparatuses to take them back, partially because we're too busy raising $100,000 to totally own AOC because we act like literal children. We have
That was someone made a joke to raise money for AOC's mom who lost their house in Puerto Rico or something like that. As like a gotcha to AOC, claiming she's poor or something. I don't know.
no right-wing George Soros. We don't even have our military anymore. Side note, do not join the military. Maybe I'll do a video on that later. But think about this. They're in such firm control over you that they can commit legitimate acts of violence and terrorism, and it will either be ignored or romanticized by the mainstream narrative. But if you listen to federal police when they tell you that you can enter a building as long as you don't break anything.
When were people promoting left-wing vigilante violence? When did that happen? Because I remember during the Black Lives Matter protests when you had some arsons occur. That's all we fucking heard about, and we had ongoing debates of like, have we gone too far? Is this too far? Have we strayed from the path? Like, what about peaceful non-resistance, like Martin Luther King? And like, that's all we were talking about during that whole fucking summer on like mainstream news channels, right? And then two, he's saying the police let them in to go on like a tour, that they didn't fucking break the glass to get into the building? What the fuck is he saying? They just showed up for a tour. That's all.
Just making shit up, like.
But you have to that's a level of delusional of like, we all saw it. There was endless footage of it. There's been several impeachment hearings reporting on it. Like, they're being arrested now. Some of them are finally getting jail sentences for this. Like, it's not like this hasn't been around and people, like, unless I guess you just solely watch John Doyle, somehow you missed it. But
they will arrest you and write the history books to compare you to the 9/11 hijackers. And so we essentially have two options: occupy a power structure or die, like literally die. And probably the only way to go about this is to do the same thing that they did. We need to have our own long march through the institutions. We need tens of thousands of disciplined, hyper-focused, patient, highly motivated individuals. Also, to anyone thinking, well, but how do you know your ideas are correct? What if you're wrong and communism's actually correct and better? I don't even know how to answer that. Like, am I supposed to not be confident in my beliefs, having done the homework? Do you think it's possible for us to know right from wrong? Do you need to see my math? Can I show you a picture of what the other side looks like? Because honestly, that's like the most compelling argument at this point.
like, this is the level it is. He's gonna show you some image, who I'm assuming these are left-wing people, and then say, look, that's all the argument I need to say. I don't need to make a reasoned case for why my moral position is correct. All I'm going to do is use words like degeneracy and truth and how this is the right way and they're the wrong way. And I'm not going to explain why it is the case. I'm just going to appeal to some vague notion of the traditional American conservative identity and why it's important to maintain it against all other views and why we must destroy the enemy. And my only retort, my only justification is going to be, well, look at them. Well, look at them. As if these are leftists and represent all leftists, and somehow looking silly in his eyes means that they're what, like, not good? I'm sure they would not agree if I had a picture of a weird looking conservative and just was like, well, look at this weird looking conservative. Would they accept that as an argument? No, because it's a dumb fucking argument. It is a really dumb fucking argument. This is like posting average redneck pictures and saying, this explains everything against Meg. Which, you know, and they were so aggrieved. When, like, not to say that I agree with any of the liberals that were posting that fucking shit, because it's usually liberals who have no class analysis that would post, like, anti-redneck shit as, like, a criticism merely for the fact that they look like they're not wearing a shirt and they look like they live in a slum or something like this, right? It's clearly libs posting that shit, but they were so aggrieved by it. I mean, they pretty much voted Trump in for that kind of shit because, well, they made fun of Trump and they made fun of us, and, like, I don't like that they're making fun of me. And yet they're returning the same volleys as insults at us, as if, like, that's somehow going to be effective in any way. It's an appealing... Which one's the appealing argument? The redneck thing? Sadly, like, most poor people, generally, working class people, did not vote for Trump. He really is a good embodiment of the axiom that success in right-wing media entirely reduces to how well you posture strength. He constantly tries to raise straw man objections to his position just to perform confidence and not even feeling the need to respond with substance. Yeah, like, the setup had that air of confidence, right? It was like, oh, like, what if I'm wrong? And then, like, he's seemingly posturing some sort of critical self-reflection or analysis that would convey that this is a thoughtful person who's really, like, delved into the nature of his thoughts and beliefs. And then what does he pull out? Well, they look ugly. Great. Great argument. The natural beauty argument is an appealing one to the masses. Well, I'll have you know that someone did say at the beginning of this chat that I have a nice looking beard. So there you go. There you go, right wing. Destroyed. Just fucking wrecked.
But simply put, the right tends to be more correct because our thinking is fundamentally rooted in reality and nature, and the left tends to be more incorrect because their thinking is fundamentally rooted in idealism. It's literally like a rejection of reality and nature.
What?
But here's the sobering truth, and I wish this weren't the case, but everything throughout history suggests that it is, which is that it's not enough to just...
So what did he say? I was typing to Evil in chat.
Oh no, it was like basically what Ortega just said with like that it's a shortcut to saying this is natural. Like he just said like, oh, the reason the right wing is more correct is because our arguments are based in like nature and reality, and left is all based in idealism and against nature or some other bullshit. Like just total ugh.
Well, and doesn't, like, Marx was explicitly non-idealist. I doubt he's using the word idealist correctly in this context either, but let's be real here.
Just be right. You have to have the power to disseminate that truth because people aren't that smart. They're basically lemmings. Don't believe me? Still think the best ideas win? Okay. Why do so many people all of a sudden think that gender doesn't exist anymore? Because
like, again, make the argument. Like, he's just gonna, you don't think the best ideas, or you think the best ideas win? Then why do people think X? Okay, well then why is X a bad position that everyone has adopted? Like, fucking have an argument.
the people who control...
Yeah, lemmings don't really run off cliffs either, yeah. Even in his posturing, he's wrong.
The narratives told them so. People need to think for themselves, but they don't. We know what's right. We know what works, and we know that we need to trust ourselves to communicate that. The reason this country used to be better wasn't because of freedom and small government. It's because the people who were controlling the narratives weren't evil yet. Like, there was always...
So, wait. So you just know what's right, and you know what is true, and everyone else is wrong. That's his argument. And the only reason that things have degraded is because back then they weren't evil yet. Well, when did people not get evil? What, like, when did people not get evil? His argument is literally like, my enemies are evil. Okay, what an argument. Thank you.
Controlling the narratives weren't evil yet. Like, there has always been narrative control. There always will be. It is inevitable. We have to make the choice as to whether we take action to be the ones controlling it so that we can take our country back. Plus, we have God on our side, which is epic. But that being said, here's what scares me.
We have God on our side, which is epic. Great argument. I'm so glad we had John Doyle to show up and just, with these high tier arguments, just blow me the fuck out. When in that marketplace of ideas that he doesn't even believe exists, he's just gonna come in. I mean, here's the thing. He says the marketplace of ideas exists. It doesn't exist. He doesn't like it. So, of course, he's not going to come with an argument. All he has to do is go, Jesus, man. Jesus. Pew, pew, pew.
In order to do this successfully, it would take about a century, literally. And that's about how long it took us to get here in the first place anyways. But what that means is that the people who get the ball rolling on this are very likely not going to live to see the results of their work. And it also means that people are going to generally have to work very hard at this and make sacrifices. And there are a few pretty significant impediments that we're going to face that the communists didn't have to face at the time, which are going to make this substantially more difficult for us. The first one is that our time preference and focus have been destroyed as a consequence of capitalism, technology, the Industrial Revolution, etc. Our ability to focus, like our attention span, has literally been crippled by these things, especially in younger people. We can't focus.
Notice he just popped up. I actually have some arguments against this claim. I think that there exists some issues with current usage of technology, but I also feel like a lot of this is overblown. It mostly comes from people who are like, well, back in my day, I didn't use a telephone when I was in high school. And so it comes from a lot of that sort of like ageist stuff. And I don't want to denigrate all the material. I'm sure Tim, who is a social psychologist, could probably, or evolutionary psychologist, might have some thoughts on it. But like, I just feel like it's blown out of proportion most of the time. But he just posts a title here: Attention Spans in the Age of Technology. With no, like, doesn't tell you who the author is. Doesn't tell you anything. It's just like, look, a title. Why? I feel so informed based on that citation.
I'm just having so much fun with these commands.
What's the new command that you've been doing? Oh,
Exclamation mark Carl.
Not the legitimate King of Spain. Jesus Christ.
Also, anybody can use the commands. I haven't like made them just for mods. I might have people end up abusing them, but if you have command suggestions, let me know.
My favorite command is the off-haven command. I must say, that is, if I can remember how to type it in. Yeah. Oh.
In younger people, we can't focus, we can't delay gratification. We want more products, new information, new stimuli, new dopamine now. And that's a huge problem because literally our biological capacity to do something like an institutional march has been compromised by the way our society has been structured. It is now less likely than it would have been a century ago for a group of people to have the requisite focus and time preference, etc., that is necessary for something like this to be successful. Not even as an
So I want to say, like, he strikes me as someone who has ADD by the, like, speed at which he talks and, like, his jumping from point to point, that is seeming lack of, like, coherency. But there's also the element in which he's telling us that all this technology, capitalism is bad, and yet he's sitting there promoting, like, he's admitting that that's what's preventing them from obtaining their goal. So you think your solution should be, I'm going to tell you right now to log off, stop watching my video, like, because it's going to prevent us from getting the conservative thing. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the analog version. I'm going to write it down in a book, and you're going to read it because somehow books are better than watching videos on YouTube in obtaining knowledge and so forth. And like, he's not going to make that argument though. I thought he was doing the intentional Ben Shapiro posture. He wants to seem smart by going fast and said, maybe. If I'm not like, no shame in having ADHD. It just strikes me as possible, given how he presents. That's all.
Indictment of their own character, but just because of the way society has become structured. It breeds this in people. Our society breeds mental illness, but we don't address that. Instead, we just give you your pills to make you feel like a zombie, but we're making progress, I guess, because at least Blue's Clues is pro-LGBT now. And that's a problem too, because people are depressed. They have no motivation.
Like these things are like, they're so disjointed and disconnected. Meanwhile, he's telling you not to take your meds. I will say right now, please stay on your meds. If you need medication, take your meds. Do not fucking listen to this person. Please.
No ambition. They're getting strung out on drugs. They're committing suicide. They hate themselves. And this collective spiritual illness is literally a breeding ground for leftism. I know I've explained this before, but leftism properly understood is just mass mobilized mental illness. And I say that not as a baby boomer, like, oh, you guys are crazy. You lost your damn minds. Literally because these people are traumatized and they project that insecurity onto these victim narratives and they crystallize them within their identity. That's why half the time you ask these people to defend their political opinions, they just get emotional. They start crying. It's because it's not actually about politics. It is about spiritual sickness. And so not only are people just generally less motivated to do anything, they're also being bred to fall in line with these narratives and movements.
There's like an element here too that's really silly, which is like, he's saying that the capitalism, consumerism, depression, mental health illness, all that fun stuff is the result, or it results in like a further moving people to the left somehow, or emboldening the left in some capacity for like creating these victim narratives or something like this. This is what he's trying to argue. But like, my experience is that these things can also motivate people to the right, because you often get in like an aggrieved thing where it's like, you blame all these outside forces or outside people or groups, usually race or women, or, you blame those for the reasons why you're disaffected and suffering from mental health and all this. It can't be because you actually have mental health issues and probably should take your medication that John Doyle doesn't want you to take. It can't be because of that. It has to be because all the immigrants are taking your jobs. That's why you're sad and depressed and in a state of poverty. So it's like those things often motivate people into the right wing. Yet he's trying to say that it feeds into the left. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? I
mean, I think he's talking about like the fact that people's lives are continuously getting worse, and like, they're working shit jobs and they're working like long hours and all those sorts of things. And just like, instead of being like, oh, they're miserable and so that feeds into their victim narrative or whatever bullshit he's saying, it's like, no, people are miserable and they know that life could be different and better. And so, yeah, like, people's misery with like their existence under capitalism does radicalize people. You're right, John. Like,
yeah,
you're just like self-fulfilling narrative of like, oh, it's because they're mentally ill that they're all leftists. And it's like,
yeah, your view is definitely the more
like,
optimistic one. I guess, like, I don't know, maybe I've been too poisoned from watching all this conservative content or other conservative people that comment on my thing, where they turn their disaffection, rather than blaming the real causes for the way they feel, they find scapegoats and other causes.
Cody, we gotta get you talking to other communists again in town. Like, they're all communists because their lives are miserable because of capitalism.
No,
like,
I know that's true. But it is also true that people become right wing for similar causes. They just find the wrong cause in their head, right? They have false consciousness in that sense.
I think the difference often is in terms of like upward mobility, because like fascists tend to come from a more middle class background that is on the decline, whereas like I think communists just come from overwhelmingly like low class, like, from poverty versus from relative wealth and security, and watching that wealth and security like slowly fade away.
Yeah, so there's two things. I guess what motivates them has more to do, like, it's similar sort like a disaffection, but it comes more from either like a fear of losing your status in some capacity.
In so often like a fear of it's a fear of becoming like the other or having what you did to the other like be done to you type of thing, where it's like that's constantly like the thing again about like anti-indigenous stuff or like anti-immigrant stuff is like, oh, they're gonna white genocide us, or oh, they're gonna send us all back to Europe, or oh, they're gonna like put us in camps.
Well, that,
It's like,
that kind of
no,
feeds into the John
that's
Doyle
what.
thing, which is like they're censoring us because we censored them, but we got to censor them again, or they're gonna fully censor us. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a very much a projection of like, you know, the dominant like ideology or race or what have you, and being like, oh, they're gonna do it back to us because in their minds that's exactly what they would want to do if they were in that position because they have the power and they're used to being able to wield it however they want. So anything that doesn't let them wield that power completely unopposed is them losing somehow.
Yeah. And what like that feeds it. There is an element of status anxiety here of losing it. You know, the fear of losing it, losing their status and power. You know.
Like you can see it even in just like the way he talks about the past, where he's talking about like, oh, in
80
the
years
past,
ago.
like we were more unified and we were a strong Christian nation and whatever other bullshit. And it's like, you know, on the one hand, like it's obviously false because like he has a shit understanding of history,
Yeah, the
but it's
founding
also
fathers were
like,
deists.
yeah, but it's also like, you know, white people were more unified in their like overwhelming support of the status quo in America, you know, in the past. Like there is sort of a larger divide amongst like, I don't know, everybody. Whereas like before it was more cleanly cut in like the, oh, it is the other that is like anti-America, and like you could point to, you know, indigenous people or immigrants or black people or like any, you know, outlying group. Whereas now it is like, you know, there's us being communists and shit talking him, like that type of thing, where, you know, in his projected worldview, he's seeing it as like, oh, it was never like this, it was never blah 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 blah. When it's like,
Yeah, there's an element in which those divisions were always there, but you are right. There was a certain. I feel like the racial component of it, in a sense, was a lot stronger back then. As like a general thing, like most people still had this sort of like, you know, even though there was class divisions amongst white people, there was still a sense of like us versus the indigenous, right? Or us versus
yeah,
blacks. Where like today, like those edges are starting to crumble a lot more than they were 200 or so years ago.
yeah, and like even, you know, because like obviously things aren't good for racialized people
No.
or otherized people in any sense. But
That's why I
like,
said the edges are crumbling. I don't want to.
yeah, like, but you can't openly like praise that anymore, even though it is like still very much a reality. Like
It's
it's
amazing. Like
quieter in a sense,
it's
you know?
amazing that like
And that's
it's
the issue.
quieter. No, exactly. That's the thing that motivates them. Like it's amazing, like how such a small, subtle change of a kind of status has them so panicked that we get a John Doyle. You know, it's super fucking weird. Like there's an element in which I could like theoretically grasp it and comprehend it, but there's also like a deeper sense in which I'll never understand it because I don't feel what a John Doyle feels clearly.
Yeah.
And adjacent to this is the abandonment of God, the lack of belief in anything greater than themselves. So given that, why would they want
Oh my god, you probably couldn't see it on the screen, but you know what that citation was from?
narratives and movements?
No.
In adjacent,
That's like-
they just get emotional. They start crying. It's because it's not actually about politics. It is about spiritual sickness. And so not only are people just generally less motivated to do anything, they're also being bred to fall in line with these narratives and movements. And adjacent to this is the abandonment of God, the lack of belief in anything great.
So it's Michael Knowles.
Michael Knowles. Oh my god.
It's a Daily Wire article. God help us. Atheism becomes the largest religion in the U.S. I don't know that that's true, that atheism becomes the largest religion in the U.S. He's probably grouping together the nuns with the atheists. Nuns are people who are just non-affiliated, but are still spiritual or religious.
Oh. No. So like not the ones that aren't like listed or like no organized religion
they usually
type
like
of thing.
check off like
Not
non-affiliated.
NUNs.
Yes, sorry. Not nuns as
Yeah.
in like Catholic nuns, but nuns as in
I was thinking Knowles
non-affiliated
would be pretty
or
in favor of those
religious.
ones.
Yeah. Let me see. Actually, we could just quickly fact check that here. Religion US. Religion in the United States. Okay, we got 42% Protestant, 21% Catholic, 2% Mormon, 28% unaffiliated. Okay, so what does unaffiliated mean? 2% Jewish, 1% Muslim, 1% Hindu, 1% Buddhist, 2% other religion, 1% unanswered. So not only is it not true because 42% remain Protestant according to this, which is 2020 data, but unaffiliated is 28%. But that doesn't mean that you're like, it just means you're unaffiliated with a particular religion. You could still be spiritual or still be like quasi-Christian or Muslim. You just don't believe in a particular teaching or faith or whatever. But God help us, atheism. And this apparently was in 2019. The data I was looking at was 2020. Michael Knowles wrote this article in 2019. Where the fuck was he getting his data? Weird.
Greater than themselves. So given that, why would they want to dedicate themselves to taking their country back if they're not going to live to see the results? You know, like, well, what's the point? What's in it for them? That's why they humiliate you by disgracing your military, disgracing your flag, putting a clown in the White House. It's a humiliation ritual. They want you to give up.
Who's the clown here? Biden?
Yep.
Like you put
obviously.
Trump in the White House, who was a fucking clown. Like, what the hell are you talking about? They humiliate you by like again, you're like, humiliation is a subjective feeling. So it's like you have to like feels like you have to have like presuppositions or preconditions in order to feel humiliated by something. Which is why if I was at a conservative conference in which a porn actress shows up, I would not feel humiliated by that. Yet the last person we watched was deeply humiliated by that. But that's on him. That's not like some innate thing. Like humiliation is some like innate concept, you know?
Up on your country. They want you to believe that it's not even worth fighting for anymore. And all of these reasons are why when people on the right do discuss a plan to take the country back, it always comes down to this fantasy of a moment of mass awakening. All of a sudden, the left is going to go too far. People are just going to snap out of it. Military is going to drain the swamp. Patriots in control. Trust the plan. No, none of that is going to happen. There is no big moment. There is no mass awakening, because to awaken the masses assumes that they're capable of waking up, which they aren't. Stop fantasizing, stop coping, roll up your sleeves, get to work. The light at
This kind of worries me a lot, because he's not wrong here. Like, I feel the same thing about like leftists. I mean, really, he's just preaching, actually motivating, organizing towards actually achieving change. I guess what like makes me nervous about him saying it is he is self-aware about that, and I'd rather he not change anything.
the end of the tunnel for us has to be the knowledge that if we do our jobs correctly, then we will have statues erected of us in our honor. We will be revered throughout history. Think about that. If you watching this right now, if you manage to do your job effectively, whatever that job may be in the struggle, and enough others do the same, you will literally be elevated to the level of the founding fathers in American history a few generations from now. And that's the greatest incentive, especially for young men, assuring them that we will cement their legacy, and we will. This is why when we take power, one of the first things that we'll do is put up statues and memorials across the country of great Americans to show that we will honor their efforts and their sacrifice. And that's the correct take, by the way, with the statues coming down and history being erased. Not that, well, they're trying to erase our history, but they're trying to erase it because they don't want it repeating itself. They don't want great Americans to be remembered because they don't want to inspire any more great Americans, because they don't want there to be an America anymore.
That nailed it. That you figured it out. I think we've discussed this on our show before. We don't want statues of anyone. I don't think we should like venerate people over movements, or we should think critically about a lot of these things, and statues are just mere objects of praise and not critical reflections. But like again, the motivation seems, for someone who keeps on talking about the soul of the nation and being very spiritual, like that was a very grounded reason for wanting to get people involved. It's like, look, if you fight for the cause, we'll put up a statue of you and it'll remain forever, which is kind of like a weak claim considering all of us destroying statues nowadays. Like your statues is probably not going to last. If you fascists get in power, your fascism collapses, and we're gonna tear all your fucking statues down. Just like, guess what? There are no statues of Hitler in Germany, are there? So good luck in having them last forever, bud.
The greatest gift that you could give to future generations is their birthright, which frankly previous generations failed to give you. That is the United States of America. Hold on, allow me to shamelessly transition into product mode. Speaking of gifts, have you thought any more about what I said about Father's Day? Did you pick a gift yet? Well, you better figure that out now, because if you don't, you're gonna have to get him a last-minute gift that you'll try to pass off as sincere. Here are some actual examples of last-minute panic purchases I have given to my dad on various occasions. Season 3 of Cheers on DVD, Bop It, Tetris Edition, a 1-ounce silver coin, a book by Nietzsche that I knew he wasn't going to read, etc. The reality is that Father's Day is coming up, and I can promise you that he...
Who gives their dad Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche? Who does that? What is, like, for one, that just expressed to me there's some daddy issues going on in this relationship. There's something weird going on there. I don't know what to say.
He doesn't want a mug or a tie. When you get your dad a mug or a tie for Father's Day, what you're really saying is, hey dad, I thought you should know that all I care to know about you is that you drink liquids and then vaguely have an interest in whatever's printed on this mug. And when you get your dad a tie, you're saying, hey dad, I thought that you could wear this to my event that you're gonna have to pretend to care about. And you know what happens after that, boys and girls? It means that you're going to find out if your quirky color-changing ceramic mug changes color with battery acid as well, or if that necktie you picked out can heft 200 pounds. You don't want that. You want to give him a gift that will save him thousands in ammo and take his marksmanship to the next level. You want to get him iTarget Pro.
What?
I was not expecting this. I know all he does is advertise for guns, but that took me for a loop. I was not prepared for this.
What?
Woo! You know, honestly, my dad would prefer the mug and the tie. Oh my god, we need to be against evil. Also, Dad, have this Beyond Good and Evil book by a guy who said God is dead. Oh, this iTarget Pro thing is hilarious too. It's like a shooting range, but you don't have to go to the shooting range.
Target was invented to give law-abiding citizens a cost-effective way to train in the safety and privacy of their own home. No more inconvenient trips to the range or expensive practice ammunition. Just download iTarget's proprietary app, load the laser bullet into your firearm, and start your training experience. Dry fire training will help develop muscle memory, sharpen target reaction speed, sight alignment, trigger function, and more. iTarget Pro comes in all the major calibers, including .223 for your AR, so you can stay sharp with almost any firearm. Go to iTargetPro.com and save 10%, plus get free shipping with the offer code Doyle. This is the smartest way for you to practice, and it pays for itself in one day. That is the letter I, targetpro.com, itargetpro.com, offer code Doyle, very epic. Anyways, we will now get into the list of 5 new conservative policies.
Isn't, like, that is such a weird...
We're finally getting into the video.
Yeah. 20 minutes in, we're finally getting into it. But, like, it's a fucking virtual target practice thing. So friggin' weird. I'm worried my dad will be so disappointed in me, he'll kill himself. So I've got to make sure he has the training to snap and take a lot of innocent people with him. That's the American way. Yeah, there's something also weird about that of, like, what you need You need target practice so desperately that you need it at your beck and call without having the hassle of drive to the shooting range. You need it like at a moment's notice. That's how desperate you need target practice. And again, like you're not getting recoil from the gun at all in this target practice. Like you get none of the real effects of shooting a gun. You're just digitally, it's like playing Duck Hunt. You're playing Duck Hunt. He should just sell Duck Hunt. That'll be better.
Policies to take our country back, starting with number one, which is, of course, that we have to get big tech under control. And I mean seriously under control.
Get it under
when I talk about
control.
almost everything that even the most hard-hitting, take no BS conservatives do as just performative, it really is true, especially on issues like big tech, which is one of the most important. So we hear about Republicans take action against big tech, epic win, libs triggered, libs on suicide watch, I'm drinking my leftist tears. And you actually look at like what they're doing, the action, like what the action is, it's legally defining what a social media company is and then saying that if, well, they ban you, well, they have to let you know about it. So I'll lay out some additional things that should be done legally, and then I'll explain why. In addition to just legally defining what a social media company is and mandating that they notify a user when they're banned, how about this? All constitutional free speech is protected on all platforms. Any platform who censors, shadow bans, or deplatforms someone for constitutional speech will pay a very large fine each time they do it. Let's say $1 million.
So he's someone who wants to ban people's speech, yet the number one thing to do is to control big tech, and he wants to force big tech into allowing him to say racial slurs on their platforms without being kicked off. But like I guess when he gets in charge, he wants to then ban communists from talking. And like, here's the thing: do you think John Doyle is going to come out in favor of like, I don't know, Islamic extremists posting their free speech on Twitter? I'm pretty sure John Doyle is going to be against that free speech, and will probably legislate big tech to be against that. That's just my guess.
Screw these people. And additionally, all previously banned candidates, independent journalists, activists, etc., must be reinstated unless the company can prove that their speech wasn't constitutional. And this would also protect current users who haven't been affected yet from the same treatment. Moreover, expand this not only into social media platforms, also internet service providers, telecommunications companies, so that they can't do this anymore either. That's basically the idea. We would effectively be guaranteeing First Amendment rights on the internet, which is the new public square. Oh, but John, if you expand your rights to include the internet, then eventually the government will use that power to take rights away, even though that's incoherent completely. There is literally no way for expanding First Amendment rights on the internet to come back to bite us. Like, sure, maybe it makes life a little bit harder in Silicon Valley, but they'll adjust. Remember, they're innovators. They'll be just fine without deciding who gets to have an opinion. And you can do this at the state level right now. Just call your people, organize, put pressure on them. We'll put out a script at some point for all of these probably that you guys can use. We'll organize more in the future, but this is absolutely imperative for our future success because like we said,
like, how do you take this far? Like, I always find these arguments like really complex, and they never address any of the nuance. Like, what if I personally ban someone from the chat here on the Twitch channel, which we did today? Like, what about that? Like, am I going to be prevented from doing that, or is it only the big tech companies? And why does it stop at the big tech company? What if, like, you, John Doyle, create, like, some sort of networking platform? Does that get covered by the law? Like, if any restrictions or regulations that you have on your platform, do they all have to go away because it's officially a public square now just for being a social media thing of some sort? Like, there's no actual nuance in any of the shit that he's saying here to get to the nub, which is, like, how would you regulate social media companies as a town square? How would you do that? I'm not necessarily opposed to that, by the way. I just think that all town squares, including our existing town squares, are regulated in ways that he's going to want to make them be free. Especially in Canada, where we have laws against this thing, it's called hate speech. You know, you're not allowed to go around promoting things like genocide in our country.
I mean, the other thing, yeah, like,
You will be
How
fine
does
'cause
this
you're third
affect
coming.
non-American internet things? Like the internet is not it is not a solely American phenomena, even if it is dominated by America.
Wasn't he speaking against free speech? No, that's the other thing that's like ridiculous. He doesn't. He wants it to be open now because he believes the institutions right now are particularly censoring right wing people, but he wants to eventually censor left wing people. This is like his steps in order for conservatives to eventually take power again. So right now they're being hindered from taking power because these big tech companies are not letting them say racial slurs on Twitter. That's sort of like what we're learning from this, which is amazing, amazing.
These platforms are the new public square, and we are being targeted so severely that if we don't use what little power we have left to guarantee ourselves a seat at the table, then we're just going to be deleted from society, and we will have no chance of turning the tide, let alone taking our country back. So we have to go after big tech, but we have to do so with teeth, with balls, because that's all these people respond to, force. We're the ones who will be placated by a performative display that is ultimately inconsequential. Oh, we totally owned him by asking him that question. These companies need to be met with force, or else we will all be screwed, blued, and tattooed. Moving on to the second one, probably the most peculiar on the list, but just as important. We need to ban poison from being put in our bodies. Here's a fact I'm not sure if you know. On average, every week, you are ingesting 1 credit card's worth of plastic. Testosterone is down 40% in the last 4 decades. That's down 1% every year. Male sperm count is expected to reach 0 by 2045. We're becoming...
What the fuck?
What? Oh, my sperm counts could reach 0 by 2045. What a fucking claim. What a fucking claim. I gotta look up that one. Jesus Christ. Oh, I will attack big tech with my teeth and my balls. Alright, let's go. Sperm counts could reach 0 by 2045. Oh, Google auto filled it in. Is this where he got it from? I don't even know what this is. Oh, I don't want you to play. Stop. Okay, let's see what we got here. Brink of a fertility crisis. Scientists say plummeting sperm counts caused by everyday products. 40-year-long study showed. Okay. Hoping for like a link. A environmental and reproductive epidemiologist. Okay. Found sperm counts have plummeted over the last 4 decades. Where's the I want the study itself. Let's see if I can find this shit. I can't find like the original study here, which tells me that I'm a bit concerned with the with this claim. No more babies? The hormone altering chemicals threatening, like they're all fear-mongering pieces. My guess is yes, sperm is declining. I highly doubt it's going to be linear like this, such that it's going to become children of men. Sperm is sacred. Sperm count reaches 0. Finally, no more condoms. This is like an economy tip. Just freeze all your sperm so your descendants can sell it for big profit. Oh, yeah. There you go. I just want to get like the evidence for the claim. Like, is it just that like it's steadily declining for the past 40 years? Like, this is just I can't remember the name of the fallacy, but this is just like you're projecting a trend way into the future. Like you're making it seem like it's going to be linear when it's like not. My guess is there could be other countervailing forces. Like there's going to be a point when your body just will continue to produce sperm. Tim says, I've looked into this, and you're right. There's a scapegoating of the environmental toxin angle to scaremonger, but there are a lot of factors at play. Yeah, I imagine that too. Wait, this person made a species unverified clan? Imagine my shock. It's I don't know that it's unverified. He listed what seemed to be a study, but it clearly, here's the other thing is I can't find a study. Now, granted, I've been looking for just a couple minutes, but you would think that this person would have like the paper. Instead, it just looks like this person is giving a press circuit on it. And that, like, to me, throws up a whole bunch of red flags. If there's not a ton of data, but you're just the one doctor, Dr. Shauna Swan, who's just going around telling everyone that, like, pregnancy is not going to happen. And I can barely find any information on her as well.
I just can't wait for the sperm-based economy. Like, the sperm standard.
Yeah, and even her Twitter is just like her giving like media reports. She wrote a book too called Countdown. Look at this book cover here. We got Countdown: How Our Modern World is Threatening Sperm Counts, Altering Male and Female Reproductive Development, and Imperiling the Future of the Human Race.
Nice.
Yeah, this seems weird to me. That this involves a deeper look in that I'm gonna get here, but I definitely feel I have my skeptic senses are tingling.
Becoming this sick, confused, androgynous society, and a large part of that is the fact that we're ingesting microplastics, BPAs, phthalates, phytoestrogens, etc., etc. Everyone wants to point and laugh. Haha, funny sweat man says frogs are gay. No one wants to talk about the effects of atrazine on studies of South African claw frogs, how it made them effeminate, how it made the males start trying to mate with other males, how it made them disinterested in the females. No one wants to talk about that. These chemicals, and there are lots of them.
I've looked into the atrazine thing, and it gets a little bit more complicated. And there's like issues with the research and a lot of infighting that I don't want to like get into. But it is true that, and this is a problem. Notice how he's not like really addressing the problem, but the problem is industrialization in terms of especially plastic production, waste affluent. So like they like to make these claims like it's directly affecting us. The reason why it's affecting the frogs, and the reason why it like affects alligators, for example, in Florida, partly has to do with reptilian and amphibian hormonal development, but also because these animals subsist in the fluid of this stuff, where we aren't necessarily like in it 24/7. And the reason why they're in it 24/7 is because a lot of these studies are done to animals that are like with the atrazine that was used as, I think, a pesticide, right? That is going into the waters, and the like run off of the field into the water, and the frogs are getting directly hit by it. Or in the case of the alligators, I know this is just one example, and it wasn't atrazine, it was some other, it was an estrogen like chemical that was coming from the manufacture of plastic water bottles, because those alligators swam in the waters around the manufacturing plant that produced this stuff. So the water was saturated with these chemicals. So this is an industrial problem. And what do you do to solve this? Regulation of government being placed on these companies. And like, where do you see any right-wing people being like, we need to tell this company over here to stop dumping plastic effluent into the water and basically damaging these animals? Instead, he has to make it about somehow it's the amount of estrogen particles are going to matriculate up and affect us and prevent us from having babies.
Are used in your food packaging, in the plastics that you use to store your food, in the cups and bottles out of which you drink. They're in your shampoos, in your toothpastes. They're in the tap water. They're in the meats, eggs, milk. They're getting into your system in more ways than we know, and we need to outright ban them. The great thing about the market breeding innovation is that when we ban things that disrupt the collective endocrine systems of the country, that literally make men more feminine, that are actively lowering their testosterone levels, the good thing is that it'll just innovate a new solution that isn't altering our hormones.
So the one thing about banning, which I think is actually the wrong solution here, which is that like some of these things serve useful purposes, and merely banning them is not going to help it. Because often The reason why we're using the ones we're using today is because the previous ones were worse and far more toxic. That is often the case. That's not to say that we can't change the ones we currently use. It's just maybe we need to have a different regulatory system in place such that how we produce, what kind of responsibility we place on the company to prevent them from like I don't know, hoarding these things in specifically ways, or like recycling them in proper ways rather than just dumping them in riverways. So it's like there's ways to fix this that don't involve just some sort of blanket ban when some of these things have uses in other places, right? uh, I'm just saying it's a bit more complicated. Like if at the end of the day banning seems to be the better solution, ban it. I just from my own reading and looking into some of these things, I know that like those kind of like just using a huge hammer to like hit this nail isn't necessarily the right solution.
But this is incredibly important because disrupting your endocrine system makes you unstable. It makes you mentally ill, and it also makes you more feminine. All of these things make you more likely to support the left, to support the narratives, the systems of power in this country, all of it. If you want a free, prosperous, happy society, then you must understand that the mass alteration of your people's hormones is not conducive to that. It makes them weak, it makes them emotional, it makes them depressed, and it is evil. And arguably, that's why it's allowed to happen and why it's swept under the rug.
There are absolutely no women conservatives. You heard it here today. None whatsoever. They don't exist. Can you be... Well, don't speak like that, please. But yes, you can be conservative and still see sex workers. I think you can be conservative and be a sex worker. But you can be a little bit more polite to them. They're offering you a service. We're being cucked by the very water we drink and food we eat.
And this isn't a conspiracy theory, by the way. Like, literally just Google it. It's all publicly available information. It's on the labels. They don't
literally Google it. Like, let me tell you this. For this kind of information, do not just literally Google it. Maybe find a friend who like researches this stuff and help them guide you to the work and stuff. Because just merely flying through a bunch of studies that in a field that you don't know, probably not the best start, you know?
even try to hide this. It's just true and no one talks about it. But anyways, moving on to number 3. This one's probably going to be the most polarized.
That's such a weird number 2. So it's like, in order for conservatives to take the country back, we need to stop poisoning our environment, which is something that affects all of us? I don't understand this.
But it's
Real
just so
conservative
true.
option would...
Sorry.
The real conservative option would be to nuke rivers where those gay frogs live.
And make them like uber frogs, right? Mutated nuclear frogs.
And then try to weaponize them.
I will say, speaking of which, since this seems to be an ongoing theme of the type of people who jumped in the chat, like having John Doyle in the title attracted a certain type today, didn't it? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, sure seemed to.
Just want to point that out there. That's all I want to say. No further comment.
Immigration moratorium. For those unfamiliar, an immigration moratorium means that we don't take in on the net any immigrants for a period of, let's say, 10 years. Before I explain why, let me just preface by reminding you that immigration in the way that we have it now is the greatest gift and weapon that the left has ever been given. The only reason that it is supported by the left is because they know that they can simply import voters to make the right electorally obsolete. And unfortunately,
that is not at all true and not feasible, mainly because there's the time between the immigrants come in and they vote is wide. So, like, you know, things can change by then and, like, different rules can be put in place. That and many new immigrants, hate to tell you this, tend to vote conservative. Often. Not always. But people aren't a monolith. So it's like, why would you think that these people are just automatically going to vote Democrat or to the left? That is a very silly assumption to make. And like this comes from the idea, like there's a lot of conservative countries around the world with conservative beliefs, and often when they come in, there's a tendency of wanting to approach the norm of the country that took you in, or without trying to rock the boat too much and trying to like fit in and blend in and that kind of stuff. There's all these pressures that get put on people. So there is an impulse
I mean,
to want to vote that way.
very obvious thing too is like if we're talking about immigration and not like refugee claims or
Right.
like
Yeah.
anything like that,
Money.
especially like the examples that I know about are Canadian, but like we just did that expedited Hong Kong immigration thing for people with I think more than $1 million in assets. So we will expedite rich people or like high professionals to like these highly educated people that are like in these specific professions that like we don't have enough of here or whatever, that are here and tend to be kind of right wing back home, and then they come here and surprise surprise they stay right wing. Like
It is weird that this myth has caught on. Or not myth, but like strategy. And I'm trying to think of like what it really is, just like a racist thing, because you would think like if they were being smart, they would like bring these people in because they will vote for conservatives. But in their thinking, they're like, but I don't like brown people or people from other countries that I don't understand. Like I really feel like it's just like a xenophobia. That's all it is. But they want to play it off as if, well, the reason we're doing it is not because we're xenophobic. It's because we don't want the left to have a voting base.
I mean, but again, like it's just they know to be quiet about it. Like
Yeah.
they know that they're xenophobic. Their viewers know that they're xenophobic, and then it's just like, huh? Not gonna say it though.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be right about it. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like the game that they play.
It's just like, well, I guess like I wonder if like this game works because I think a lot of people like might agree with the assumptions having to do with the fact that like one side seems to be a little bit more pro immigration, and the assumption being like, oh, those are the people who let me in, so therefore I'm going to support them, right? And that's not quite how it works.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the right supports it too because they get paid off by big business because mass immigration depresses wages. But anyways, there is nothing
No, it
wrong
doesn't.
with a
The more people who are in, like, more product, more people to purchase product, so therefore it'll either just keep the economy remaining the same or whatnot. Like the economics here are a bit complicated, but like it doesn't show that if you have an influx of people who are paying taxes and doing everything else like normal citizens and therefore needing to buy products and do other shit, that somehow this is going to suppress wages. That's not how it works.
I
Sorry,
mean,
but it's not how
there
it
is a point to be made about like, bringing in migrant workers or whatever else, and like, or using like illegal immigration so that they have like that threat and not being able to quit is like a means of depressing wages.
But it's depressing
But like
wages
to tie
of
that
the
into like,
immigrants. Or not even of the immigrants because they're migrant workers. They're not going to be allowed to immigrate here, right? But that's suppressing their specific wages. If anything, that's like, because what he's suggesting is it's going to suppress wages overall, but that's not true at all. Like for people who already live here, right? Like
yeah, I don't know.
you're not like, I'm totally gonna agree with you. The way we treat migrant workers in this country is fucking disgusting, and similar shit in the United States with that as well. And the issue is the government subsidizes these companies to bring them in to work the fields and pay them low standard wages even for our country because
Yeah,
it's fucked
I
up.
wasn't thinking more like the legal
Hey, how
structures
long are you
of
going for tonight?
migrant work in general. I was thinking more like the kind of legal sort of under the table ones where it's like, no, like I've worked with people like that where it's like, they're here on a student visa or they're like here in the country with like not quite legal papers for working or whatever, and like they were used, like that was used to pay them less. And because it was a business that did that, they also paid me under the table and less. Like, like it's not. But again, like that's not, legal immigration, which
Yeah.
is what he's still talking about.
Exactly.
Like there is that distinction still. Also, hi, Keffels.
Hello, and thank you for the subscription. Very
Are you?
nice. Can we do the bot thing now, where you tell people to go follow Keffels? Is that something we have?
I
figured out?
haven't set up shoutouts yet. No,
Oh
I
shit!
haven't. Yeah.
They're rating us
Gotta figure
with
it out
47 people. Well,
Okay, I'm gonna
thank
do it
you.
manually real quick. Oh goodness.
I mean, most of the people are coming in from Keffels, but Keffels is awesome. They are local to us. They are cool, and they were playing. What was the game you're playing? Stardew Valley? Is that the game? I was watching a bit of that. Hello, parental figure Stalin. Welcome. We are watching John Doyle. We won't be watching him for too much longer. We got 10 minutes left of the video.
What is this? Are you
And,
guys kidding me?
oh, thank you for the follow, Marlon. We're following John Doyle. He does, if you don't know, he's basically a fascist. He does a video series called Heck Off Commie, and this is one of his more recent videos. And he's basically talking about how the conservatives
Are you
can
guys
take their
kidding
country
me?
back, and it's a really terrible video. But what I do is basically critique these assholes. So we are watching it. Shiko Gato. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for the follow. I often, if those of you who don't know, my main shtick is Vienna and I have a podcast called Imperial News with an S rather than the Z for the Twitch channel, and we cover Rebel News, which is a Canadian fascist media organization. They gave us Gavin McGuinness, which created the Proud Boys and all that bullshit. So, so that's what we cover on our podcast, and then on our streams sometimes on Wednesdays specifically, we do random conservative people. I think on Mondays we're going to start doing, and I think hopefully like this Monday, start doing more like less reactionary content and more like reading a piece of Marx or something like that. A little bit more left-leaning content in that respect. So if that interests you more, we will be doing that on Monday, reading some theory. But Fridays we usually do rebel content, and Wednesdays random conservatives like this asshole right here.
What is this? Are you guys kidding me?
Thank you, Impressy, for the follow as well. If you are done, you should consider rating Schmoopel Ow, who is cool as heck. Say hi to me for them if you do. I will check that out. What does Schmoopel do? So this stream supports
What
sex
is this?
workers'
Are you
rights.
guys kidding me?
100% we support sex workers. 100%. The first video we watched was this dude named Matt Walsh, who's another conservative asshole who was wanting to cancel a sex worker conservative that showed up to a conservative convention while complaining about cancel culture
What
at
is
the
this?
same
Are
time.
you guys kidding me?
Impressy, thank you. I think I already said thank you to you. Sarah the Green Ranger, awesome. Thank you for the follow. And not Colin. Well, whatever you are, you're not Colin, but whatever you are, welcome. Thank you for the follow. 2 cars back from your meeting. A trans gaming streamer. Cool. She's playing Valorant right now. I actually don't know what Valorant is, to be honest. My ideology consists of bullying fascists and liberals. I can get behind that ideology. I personally try to be a little bit more kinder to some liberals, although on Twitter today I was a bit aggressive against the liberals. Only because I think, compared to fascists, I feel like you might be able just to nudge a few liberals our way, but most of the time they can go fuck themselves too. I feel that vibe. Colin is my government name. It's a joke because my username I use everywhere else is taken on here. Oh, okay. Oh, well, thank you for the raid, Keffels. That was very nice. It was very kind of you. And I hope all of you enjoy. I am going to... Right now, John Doyle is giving us his top 5 ways conservatives could take their country back. And so the first... I can't even remember what the first one was. Do you remember, Vienna?
A bunch of bullshit. I have no idea, honestly.
I remember
like
the second one had to do with the endocrine system, which was that like
okay.
companies were producing too much plastic and it was going to turn us all into women, I think.
First one was free speech bullshit on social media.
Yeah, ban.
Second one was the frogs are turning gay.
Yeah.
Third, anti-immigration bullshit.
Yes. So the first one was like
Yeah.
turn big tech, like social media, into a commons. Even though he said previously in the video, he said he wanted to censor all leftists, but he wants complete and utter free speech on social media platforms. Sapphic Space Syndicalist, welcome. Thank you for following. Conservatives want to cancel plastics.
What is this? Are you guys kidding me?
He's weird because like I know there's like a big like libertarian strain. He is anti-libertarian. He is a conservative in the sense of he wants to return to the founding fathers, and he thinks that laws are okay, but so long as they're used to promote religion, his specific religion, and ban all communists is sort of his position. And thank you, Parental Figure Stalin, also for the follow. Very nice. Point 2 is to stop the tactical bimbofication of America. What was the other thing? Also, like sperm is in decline, apparently, even though that's a bit of a complicated thing. But here we go. We're gonna get back into it. He just said that immigration was suppressing wages, which is not true, and we're off on a tangent just as we got raided. So we will now continue listening to John Doyle and see where this takes us. Thank you again for all the followers. That was very kind of you. Tactical bimbofication. Need someone to do that to me. Yes, we're pro tactical bimbofication here on the Imperial News channel. Definitely pro that.
Opposing something because it will hurt you politically, especially because the only reason that they support it is because it will help them politically. And not only help them, but cement victory for them. And I'll probably do a whole video on just this topic in the future. Let me know if you want to see that. But for now, what I'll say is this.
I don't.
Much of the immigration pitch in this country appeals to the patriot's ego. And even Ronald Reagan was guilty of this. We hear this rhetoric, how these people just want to come to America because it's just the greatest country in the world and it's the land of opportunity and it makes us feel like maybe we still are a great country. And I'm sure a lot of these immigrants who do come here, they absolutely believe that that's the case. And I love that. I sympathize with them. But unfortunately, yet obviously, we have to prioritize the needs of our country and our people. And the reality of the situation is that these immigrants are not assimilating and they're taking more money out of the system than they put into it.
I mean, like, yeah, the assimilation argument, like we already pointed out, like this is just pure xenophobia bullshit. But like, the money thing, I don't know what he means by that. They're taking more money out of the system than they put in. Like, what are you talking about? So the people who live there, they're not going to buy any widgets. They're not going to shop at the local fast food joint. They're just going to, every money they get, they're just going to purchase things overseas. They get all their food shipped in from like out of town. They don't shop at any local stores. I don't understand what the hell he's talking about there.
John, the economy is global.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. And it's still dominated by the US, even if some immigrants are sending money back to their families at home. Like, it's still gonna probably be spent and make America money, like, dumbass.
Yeah, Jesus. It's just not true on anything but the shortest timeline for undocumented immigrants in particular. They get so few benefits. It's wild. Yeah, I mean, they're giving the labor value. I mean, like, that's the one thing that's not calculated into here is the work that they do. In terms of labor value. What was the person that got banned? They say
spam.
Spam, okay, yeah.
The typical right-wing line
Nothing
is,
racist this
well,
time.
I like
That's the other thing. Since we're watching John Doyle, we had a few racist people pop in chat that we had to deal with. So.
legal immigration. What I don't like is illegal immigration. And then the elites are like, oh, I mean, okay, we'll just do it that way then. Think about it. What difference does it make? If you get 1,000 people from El Salvador,
I love this.
Somalia, wherever, you get 1,000 of them at the border, what difference does it make if they run past the entrance or go through it? Seriously, what is the effective difference?
So he's not just against illegal immigration. He's against all immigration. So fucked up.
Sapphic Space Syndicalist made a good point that honestly, like, I didn't even
Oh, well,
catch
What
of
is
like
this? Are you guys
he's-
kidding me?
he spoke around the 14 words. Yeah.
He's done so many things. Like, here's the thing: is he's already blown. He was talking about how like the West has become too decadent and too degenerate, and therefore we need like a strongman daddy figure to take over. Like we're far. He's done way more than just the 14 words, is what I'm saying here. So like maybe like it'll shock your system having just like jumped into this, but we've been swimming in it for like the past hour and a bit.
Yeah. No, like this dude is very much like crypto fascist. Like
And
he doesn't come out and say it explicitly, but it is always implied.
it's way more overt than I would like for something that exists on YouTube. 100%. 100%. Conservatives love to hammer on the fact that many immigrants send money overseas back to their families out of proportion of how much it actually matters. I mean, like, this whole thing is out of proportion of how much it actually matters. And thank you for Sinister Aish for the follow. Welcome.
And user. We got another.
Oh, we got another.
Got another racist.
It was red, just like Sapphic Space Syndicalist. So I was like, "Whoa, Sapphic, what are you doing here?" And then I realized it was a different user. Yeah, no, we got a few racists that have been coming out of the woodworks because of John Doyle. So it is what it is.
A majority of both legal and illegal immigrant households are on welfare. So it seems that while there may be a lot of them who, really just want to make it for themselves in this country, the majority of them seem to want to loot a decaying empire undergoing its managed decline. Oh, but they help the GDP, John. The GDP, they help it. GDP, John. On paper, yeah, sure. How much of that benefits us, though, Americans? Because it's estimated that immigration, both legal and illegal, increases the GDP in this country by like 11%, like 1.6 trillion. Cool, right? Guess how much of that increase goes directly to the immigrants themselves in the form of wages and benefits and benefits that Americans aren't getting fully.
Like, notice that even like you want to talk about the 14 words. Notice as well the distinction that he's making between like the other people and then like Americans, as if there's like some sort of like essential American person that he's referring to, which I guess in his mind clearly is the white American male that signed the Declaration of Independence. Thanks, mods. Yeah, Vienno's been doing the modding tonight as well. We just recently got our Twitch bot, so we've been on that as well.
Yeah. Let me just.
What did the person say? Oh, it was something about I can't even remember what they said. It was bad.
Okay, I can read it out. It said, "National Socialism will vaporize these leftist pigs."
Yes.
So like
it was
very
Yo,
Nazi.
yo, yo, yo.
yeah,
Adnan.
like blatant. Hi Adnan, how are you?
Thank you for the subscription, Adnan. And yo back to you. Thank you very much for the subscription. Everyone should check out Adnan's channel too. If you like gaming streams, if you came from Keffels, Adnan does some awesome gaming streaming stuff as well. So you should go follow Adnan as well. We will one day teach our bot to be able to link directly to their account. We don't have
Yeah,
that
I'll
ability.
figure that out at some point.
As long as we're talking about fascism, I'm going to say that D&D has fascist mechanics. I can't speak to that. I don't play a lot of D&D. I got you, Baze. Well, I have to. It's not that I have to do it, Adnan. It's that I like you and you're a good person. So everyone should go check out Adnan. They are awesome. Don't worry, I would die before I let you. Yeah, no, that was. We had a comment on one of our, because I post some clips up on YouTube, and we had someone promoting fucking social Darwinism, responding to one of our videos. It's like, Jesus. You mention a racist and they crawl out of the cracks.
97.8%. GDP going up, supposed to benefit us, right? I mean, that's why you said it. No, total benefit is about 0.2% of the GDP, about 35 billion. Oh, but John, when GDP increases, prices decrease. And I know this because Henry Hazlitt told me so in 1946. Okay, cool, irrelevant. I'll tell you why right now. But first, just internalize that there is very little evidence that indicates.
This is clearly like some conservative infighting that I just don't give a shit about. Like who is this economist you're referencing? Like, I don't care. Okay, how about this? Let's just get rid of capitalism. I'd be happy with that. Then we don't have to worry about all this bullshit GDP shit you're talking about, John.
or suggests that immigration in any form is a substantial benefit to the American people. But that aside, here's why economic arguments about immigration are irrelevant. 19 out of 20 illegal immigrants will vote for Democrats. 9 out of 10 legal immigrants will vote for Democrats. This is a fact. We'll have a problem when liberals move from California to Texas, but they keep voting for the same policies that ruined where they came from in the first place. Yeah, what do you think is going to happen here? Do you think that they're going to totally abandon their...
Because when people... So, here's the silly thing there, too, is, like, there's no evidence either that, like, somehow, like, people move from California to Texas and then therefore, like, turn Texas into California. For one, like, they don't have the critical mass to do that. It's not like there's waves of people entering Texas from California. But, like, most of the people who would want to leave from California to Texas are probably people who there's a reason why they want to go to Texas. That, and, like, California itself, in its very recent past, was very right-wing. Very right-wing. So, like, all of this is just...
Or was Reagan, like...
Reagan? Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was the Republican governor for how many years?
God.
Just all of this is just, like, nonsense spewed out of his ass. But, like, again, most immigrant... Like, it's probably around 50%. I can't remember the last time I looked. But it is not 19 out of 20, like he was saying, for, like, new immigrants voting Democrat. That figure is definitely wrong. Not if it was the cool kind of red. Would he like immigrants if they voted red? He doesn't like immigrants, period, I think. I think that's, he doesn't like them, my guess, is because they're not white. If I had to guess. And if they're white, they don't speak the language that he likes. That's probably the angle he's going to take.
Culture. Do you think that they're going to get a white picket fence and start reading Thomas Paine and John Stuart Mill and the Federalist Papers? Well, I'm okay with immigrants as long as they assimilate. They're not assimilating.
How many people who already live in America or happen to, like, come out of a womb in America or emerge into the universe and happen to land in America? How many of them have read Thomas Paine or want a white picket fence? But somehow immigrants, the first thing an immigrant must do when they show up is erect a white picket fence and then bust out the Thomas Paine. They all need to do that, or else they're not assimilating and they have to go back home. Why would they read that garbage? This dude is so racist, he probably hates the Irish. I mean, his last name, well, I was going to say his last name is Doyle. He could be compensating. I don't know.
They don't want to assimilate. Well, but my family immigrated and we're assimilated. That's great. I'm happy, good. But we're not talking about you. We're talking about very strong tendencies, not exceptions. 3 generations of immigrants later in this country, they're still not assimilated. They actually are even more in support of Democrats. They only assimilate to American culture to the degree that American culture promotes its own destruction.
So, like, for him, assimilation is just never, like, so parents come in and then they have kids. And those kids have kids, and they vote Democrat, and that's not assimilating. What the fuck? Oh my god. Wait until I tell him he's from an immigrant. Like, what? None of this makes any sense. Like, why? He talks about wanting to restore traditional American conservatism as if, like, that is, like, the best place to be, as if, like, the founding fathers and that time period was the greatest time ever, when it's like, why did you arbitrarily select that time period and not say, I don't know, 1400s England or something, right? It's just all fucking arbitrary bullshit to promote his racist bullshit.
Degeneracy, communism, hatred of white people, etc. And that's the biggest thing. If a majority of these immigrants say they're against free speech, they're against gun rights, etc., and a vast majority of them are voting for Democrats who literally want to erase our country, how could you ever think that they're assimilating? That's irresponsible. Democrats are trying to uproot the country, and they're only a few elections away from giving all of these illegal aliens the ability to vote. And then they're just going to bring in more, and then we will never win an election again. And even if you wanted to change these people's minds, you don't have the institutional power to do that as quickly as would be necessary, even if it were possible. That's why we need an immigration moratorium. We need 10 years, net zero immigration. You want to bring over your spouse or your kids, that's fine. Welcome, welcome, but net zero. Also cut welfare benefits from illegals, let them repatriate. And I know there's a lot of...
And why cut welfare just to... Like,
What
oh my god.
the fuck is he talking
A
about?
10-year moratorium on immigration. Like, again, like, how would that somehow magically the current existing population in America will just, like, become fascist in 10 years by blocking all immigration? Like, I don't even understand his, like, theoretical thought process and what's going on there. Love to return to the conception of rights that are intimately tied to the Lockean conception of owning and working land. Love Enlightenment values that teach us Native Americans weren't real people. Yeah. IRC, it has similarities with Lancer, but oh, you're responding to someone. This is just so not like it would be one thing if it was based in reality, like you had actual facts to back up any of his positions here, but it's like somehow he has this perception that all these immigrants are going to come in and just magically vote one way after spending the years to achieve their citizenship to get to that place and then vote magically for the Democrats. And somehow the mere fact of voting for Democrats means you haven't officially assimilated yet. Imperial News Stream. Babe, wake up. Who should wake up? What are you talking about, Keffels? Reading my posts out loud is a risky move. 70% of my persona is distilled shitposting. Well, that's fine. I like a good shitpost. Just make it a good one, all right? I don't want... Not one that's going to get you kicked out of chat by, like, I don't know, promoting Nazism like that last person. I don't want to alarm you, Jody, but people in the chat are promoting thirst sword lesbians. What's wrong with thirst sword lesbians? That's probably a discourse I'm missing, but, like, I approve.
Of immigrants who are right-wing, who love America, and that's great. I love that, but unfortunately, as I'm sure they know, the vast majority are aiding in the destruction of America. In 10 years, if we get our country on the right track again, sure, we can reconfigure our policies, but right now, what we're doing is absolutely unsustainable. And the final point is this: to be unfailingly pro-immigration is necessarily to be unpatriotic. Because if you believe that America needs other people from other countries to teach America how to create art or music or food or enterprise or technology, you simply haven't been paying attention. What you are saying is that other people are better than Americans and we need them to come in and help improve us because we just aren't good or capable by ourselves. The fact is that we didn't build the most advanced and prosperous society by pouring in 2 million people a year from the third world. We did it.
I'm pretty sure, now I'm just throwing this out here, that immigrants were a constant thing in the United States. There was never a point. In fact, let's be honest, there was a forced type of immigration that brought people to America that were responsible for its prosperity. But those people didn't necessarily want to come and then remained here forcefully to produce that wealth. John Doyle. Like, I love this. It's just this fucking idea that somehow, like I don't know, Americans had some sort of like magical powers and built everything by themselves. Didn't do any harm in producing all that stuff. They just magically did it. When it's like, no, you use things like slavery. You committed genocide. And then use that wealth to build your cities. And your prosperity. I'm experiencing Mengele effect where number 1 apparently now means pee and number 2 means poop. Are you all right? He's acting like a collapsed Republican Party would lead to a one-party state, but we really had a collapsed Republican Party briefly in the 40s. I don't even necessarily think he likes Republicans. Because he's claimed that there's been no good Republican in the country for the past 80 years. So he doesn't even include Reagan into that. Doyle is comparable to Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon in his immigration beliefs. Yeah, exactly.
Did it with our own people. Americans are smart. We can do the jobs. We can run our own country. We're still pioneers. And after we get things under control, after we start taking care of our own people, after we restore the American dream, which is dead, maybe we can start opening it back up to other people. Oh, well, but John, Steve Jobs was an immigrant. The guy who invented Google was an immigrant. Yeah, and now Google wants to kick you off the internet for having the wrong opinion, for being to the right of Hillary Clinton. So look where that got us. But see,
you already in this video said you wanted to ban people, especially leftists, communists who you want to kill. Like we've already been over this, John Doyle. You can't like complain that like this, like you want to ban and suppress people, and you're gonna whine about your own suppression. Great job. It was the
Sorry, I
Protestant
was playing
thing,
around
right?
with Nightbot again.
Nom de net,
Nom, I love you.
thank you very much. You are an incredible human being. That is a very kind 14 gifted sub. Thank you very much.
15 gift subs
I'm
in
young, I'm
total.
black, and my hat's down low.
Everyone should tell Nam that they are lovely people. What does monopoly capitalism have to do with immigration? He just acts like there's a connection. He, like, not a lot of anything that he said made sense, to be honest. I think that's what we're getting from this video, is John Doyle just likes to make up a whole bunch of shit. But, like, what is it? I don't get his point. Like, his point is that somehow Americans are good enough to, like, they can build and create all the shit themselves. Therefore, we don't need immigrants to create this sort of, like, ingenuity and development and all this shit. Right? But, like, but why not have other people come in who can also be creative and create things and have a diversity of those people from different perspectives who can also be creative? Wouldn't that be good? How's that not good? Like, none of it makes any sense to me. I don't understand why this is a problem.
None of this has made any sense. He just spouts out bullshit and then like says it fast enough and confident enough that people buy into it. Like I think it was Tim who was saying like it's Ben Shapiro type shit. Like it's just
Yeah.
he says things fast enough and in a vaguely confident manner, and people eat it up because to be a man and say stuff in that way is enough. It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be backed up. It doesn't have to be real or based in anything. He can just say it and people will buy into it because
I like Sinister Aisha's point, which is ironically, the US would be better off with less clowns like this guy and more immigrants. 100%. I am just a random internet nobody bumbling around life and occasionally getting things right like a broken clock. We still love you here. Num, you are always welcome.
Because I'm young and I'm black and my hat's down low.
Not Colin. Thank you for the subscription. That is very kind. Oh, and I guess this is still
Nom is gifting more subs. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, we still love you for the follow, not Colin.
Because I'm
You are
young
very
and I'm
kind.
black and my hat's down low.
seriously, those types of people are 1 in a billion, specks of dust in a haystack. If you take 1,000 Americans and 1,000 people representative of the current immigration proportions, lock each in a separate baseball stadium, tell them how to figure out, or tell them to figure out how to get to Mars or to create Google 2, Americans win. We're still the best. Let's start acting like it again. And you may not like it, but this is nonetheless true.
How, like, I want to run that experiment. I might guarantee you Americans would not win this, like, fucking weird experiment that he just suggested. What nonsense. Buttered Hunter. Look at this. Everyone's rating and subscribing and following. What a lovely time. Everyone should go check out Buttered Hunter. They're relatively new. They stream leftist politics, and
Are you guys kidding me?
not only do they stream leftist politics, they occasionally play some Rocket League. I have witnessed such. Pretty sure neither will get to Mars. Oh, this is true. Americans are too spoiled to figure that shit out.
Because I'm young and I'm black and my hat's down low.
I can't tell what's happening. Too many follows and announcements.
Yeah.
And
Just continue the video.
Severely distracted.
I want to
Take our
be
country back.
done
We
with
need an
John
immigration
Doyle. I hate this
moratorium. Oh, but
dude.
the economic benefit, which you just explained,
We
wasn't
got
even
one more point,
significant.
don't we?
Oh, you mean the economy that's going to be destroyed when they inevitably vote Democrats into office and eventually solidify a one-party state? That economy? We can't assimilate millions of
I'm
people
young
from other
and
countries
black and
each
my
year if
hat's
we
down
can't even
low.
assimilate our own children, so that they grow up to not.
Wait, so we can't even assimilate our own children. So then what what the fuck is going on about? None of this makes any
Assimilate.
sense.
Who is assimilate? Was that
Because I'm young and I'm black and
you
my
will
hat's
be
down low.
assimilated? Is
It was the
that
Borg. So he's the Borg. He
Okay.
wants to create all of his children to be 19 or like 80 years ago human beings. Following the Buttered. Nice. Thank you, Adnan, for following the Buttered. And thank you, Buttered, for the raid. I think I already said thank you, but thank you. The right is really into brainwashing.
all children?
Yeah.
All children are automatically communist because they get taught to share at preschool, or by their parents, or by anybody else in their lives. So
Hey, my kids are already down on the dialectical because there's two of them. So.
yeah, boom. Oh, I need to make a dialectics command.
Whenever somebody mentions two things, yo, dialectic. Two
Yeah,
things.
when two cars was saying
Yeah.
number two is poop. Dialectics is when there's two of something.
Fascist, you can derail Stunlock the stream by gifting subs. Yeah, no, do it. Yeah, fascists come in and gift subs, and although Nomdinet's not fascist, Nomdinet is cool. Kind of sus imposter stuff, to be honest. It's all shit. Oh yes, one day we'll teach everyone about the off haven. We watched a James Lindsay video, and James Lindsay was talking about off haven being the negation, and all critical theorists and Marxist dialectical people want to do is use off haven by making you critically analyze things. And he says your response to that is to tell whenever someone's making you think critically, you're supposed to go, "Stop manipulating me." So if you make the chat bot with exclamation mark off haven, you get the "stop manipulating me" response. Wait, so fascists can end communism?
I need to make the
anarchism?
dialectics funnier.
Is when there is two of something. That's true.
Yeah, I need to
Didn't
make
you
it
try to
repeat
make?
it.
Listen, Sinister Aish, stop manipulating me. Negation. Oh god. It was the funny thing about that James Lindsay video is it was like an hour long of them sitting down talking about Hegel, and it was like this is connected to this, which is connected to this, and it all of leftism goes back to Hegel, and then it goes, and you need to know that, and the reason you need to know that is because then you know how to respond to it, and so you're waiting to hear what James Lindsay's
young
like
and black
solution
and my
is,
hat's
like
down
how
low.
do you respond to that? And James Lindsay goes, how you to respond to that is by saying, no, stop manipulating me. It's like, did I really need to know Hegel to get that? You could have just told me to just blindly not listen to people.
What is this? Are you guys kidding me?
Thank you, Star Slice, for the follow. Thank you very much.
Nom, thank you for the next gifted sub.
Yeah,
Again,
just
we
like-
love you. You are greatly appreciated.
We need we should give Nom a what's, I know you can do VIP shit. I don't know how to do any of it.
Yeah, I need to figure out how to do that.
Listen, we got Vienna on. Vienna's been harassing me nonstop. Harassment's maybe too strong of a word, but like politely gesturing me to improve some of the Twitch stuff. So, but now they're on the case. So,
Hey. I have a command for this. Jody, do whatever I want you to do. I haven't thought of a thing right now. But
that's a command too. That's amazing.
I have a command that's just bully.
Yeah, my thing with the VIP thing is I think you can set different functions too, but I have to go into we got to figure out what we can get Nomdinet to do. Nomdinet
Yeah, I
is
can't add VIP, but I can do it.
I can, but I think I have to go into the Twitch stuff and figure out what the VIP does. But we're gonna listen to John Doyle again for a second, so we can finally get to point 5 in his
Yeah.
or 4. I don't even think we've gotten to 4 yet.
not hate their country. And right now we're struggling with even that. But anyways, speaking of the children, we know that the backbone of society is the family unit. And so we need some strong pro-family, pro-child policies. Our fertility rate is currently below replacement. We need to start having more kids. I personally think it would be kind of cool if we bred the left out of existence. And so to do that, we need to make it easier for people to start families and to have lots of kids and provide for and protect those families. What are some ways we could do that?
Bred the
And
left out of existence.
I'll tell you, I've produced 2 people who I am definitely going to instill leftist values in. So I guess we're having a child arms race. I don't know. That's such a. I mean, like he literally is promoting a kind of indoctrination. You know, that he specifically wants to have kids and like make them his version of conservative, which is terrifying.
Yeah. It's also, again, kind of the, like, 14 words adjacent, where it's like, we need to build a blah, blah, blah for our white children. Like, the photos, the, like, we must stop immigration, and we must have more babies to breed the white genocide or whatever other bullshit. Like,
And Benjamin's
it's just so...
Benjamin's hitting on some contradictions here too, which is like, it's also the sense that he's talking about how society has grown up and become more communist and more left leaning. So how is it that you're going to like somehow have more kids and like keep them in line? Because why weren't the conservatives of the past able to keep people in check? And I guess his response will be that this has to be in tandem with the other shit that we've already heard, which is like the tech censorship stuff, the estrogen in the water or some shit like that, and then also the immigration stuff. No, I don't want to have kids myself. I can babysit a red diaper baby, but that is my hard limit. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to think. Yeah. It's yeah. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, generations change, and here's the thing: you have to learn this as a parent. So even I've come to terms with this as a parent, even though my kids are still really young. But this is from research that I know. I used to work in a developmental psychology lab where I used to do experiments on children. But I say that, but it was like trying to learn how children develop math. It was very non-invasive. But one of the things that we know about children is that they adapt more to their peer group than their parents. So you probably have noticed this in your own lives, but like, you know, your parents try to pass things on to you, but you often adhere to the values of the people, your friend group at school, rather than your parents. That's life. People like associating with the people that they enjoy being friends with and hanging out, and it's usually not our parents. As much as I would love to just go, hello, children, communism, and have my kids grow up and be communists, you know, I'll try my best, but it's just what's going to happen is they're going to go out in the world, find friends, and the best I could do is try to convince them to not be friends with fascist assholes like this guy. It's my fault the birth rates are down. My ass is too big and juicy and men stop caring.
ending no-fault divorce, rejecting any zoning laws that seek to end single-family home neighborhoods, thereby protecting the suburbs. This will defend expanding the right to carry for all U.S. citizens, constitutional carry, very epic, banning abortions, ending Common Core, implementing pro-family, pro-America education, banning hormone treatment, puberty blockers, all of that stuff for minors, banning drag queen story hour in public libraries, increasing tax incentives to get married and have children.
Like, what? I can, you know, the transphobia aside, if you put the like, if some of these processes create sterility and your point here is to make children, just that is a point. But then how does the drag queen story time fit into this narrative? How is that preventing families or children?
It turns the books gay.
It makes people want to be trans, or like, is that the argument he's making?
Oh, it makes the books gay, and then people read the books.
Okay. I can don't. That is a weird point in the middle of that does not make sense to me. But okay, John.
Star Stelice, he's gone on like multiple tangents about like Drag Queen Story Hour. So it's like it's just like the big thing that he really hates
All conservatives have been
for
doing
some
it.
reason.
Yeah,
Like
it's a big
Yeah.
conservative talking point, and I think it's because it's story time, so it's being presented to children, and so it's a big play for a lot of the conservatives to be like, look at these degenerates, like trying to make our kids gay or something like that. That is usually the angle. This is his like second most recent video. I didn't play his most recent in part because all it was him walking down the streets of Texas, like interviewing random people. And what he would do was ask them about Pride Month in Texas. And then once they're like, oh, like, I'm cool with Pride, he would show on his phone images of the drag queen story time and then get people to be like, oh, well, I'm not okay with that, and like stuff like this. And it's just like, it's their way of trying to, like, I think, reach normies by like, look at this. Doesn't it look kind of like awkward and weird? It's just more of that shit. It's bigotry. When it's like, really, it's just people reading stories to kids. Who the fuck cares? I would take my kids there because I don't give a shit. I was made into a woman by in story time. Weren't we all?
Affirming that marriage can only be between a man and a woman, and when we take power, and we will, cleansing the system of all of its wasteful spending.
Cleansing
Then
the
we can
system-
redirect
okay,
some of that
wasteful
money to
spending.
things that are actually like cool, like a national honor, a medal for mothers and fathers who have stayed together and raised 4 or more children. That'd be sick. That'd be sick. Do
the
that, and then like on the child's 18th
A
birthday,
medal?
we'll pay off your mortgage or something. Our country can't have a
What? Okay, the paying off the mortgage thing wouldn't be too bad. But like a medal? You did it. They have like podiums like at the Olympics, but for people who stay together. Like, we made it 40 years, dear.
what the fuck?
Right? Like the two things he suggested for like getting conservatives pumped. The one was having statues so that you would exist throughout all of eternity, preserved in like your statue for fighting for the cause or whatever. And now it's like you'll get medals for being a parent. Like, what? Nothing he said has made me go, you know what? Yeah, I want that. I'm gonna change it. I want a statue. I want a medal for being a parent. I want none of that.
His life must be so empty.
Yeah. Are you serious, Benjamin? That's a little too on the nose, if true. The Nazis literally had medals for that. Hitler's
Okay,
yeah.
so another thing that we were talking about before Keffel's raided and all these people arrived was the like he explicitly named 80 years ago
Yeah.
as like the last time that there were good conservatives. And that was
1940s.
I mean, you know, give or take a year or two. That's right before America entered World War II. Like
It's a little telling. It's just a little telling.
yeah.
future if it doesn't have families. Who's going to carry the torch? More babies. Not tomorrow, not after breakfast, now.
Tiki torch.
I'm going to get all the smartest
Listen.
people I know into an office. I'm going to figure out how to make it easier for young Americans to get married and have children. We're banning OnlyFans. And it's not canceling student debt. It's not guaranteed housing. Duh. Relax, lib. My least favorite trend on the left is when they pretend to care about family and community just because they want free stuff. Like, I know you people. You literally hide in your room during family gatherings, or you just don't even show up. You are not family-oriented. You are cringe. You are spiritually ill. But anyway.
I just went camping with my kids. I guess I'm spiritually ill. I took them for long walks in the woods where we got to appreciate nature and do pretty normie shit. But apparently the left is anti-family. Okay, cool. And we're cringe. We're cringe, yet you want to award parents with medals for the mere fact of giving birth to other human beings. Wonderful. That is the most absurd thing. Biggest problem in the modern world is people nutting to OnlyFans when they should be impregnating their wives. I'd also like to know how to get babies by breakfast. Well, You could always try. A mail-in baby? Just order a mail-in baby. You could probably get it by breakfast. We got Amazon now, right? They would rather have white people pump out kids to live low-quality existences, but when browns do it, they get mad and start foaming out at the mouth. Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing. You're talking about like immigrants. Remember, he was just talking about immigrants being bad. Yet, like, immigrants tend to have more children than the societies in which they arrive. At least first-generation immigrants. That tends to go away.
Adon's got it.
Who? Adnan?
Amazon Prime, baby.
Yeah.
Babies with next day delivery.
Hell yeah. I mean, and then we're gonna use Jeff Bezos's rockets to deliver them. We'll just wrap the baby in bubble wrap so that it like lands on your front porch and doesn't crack like an egg. But everyone is distant towards family. This is a consequence of industrial society and capitalism. People need to move to find careers and do. Yes, exactly. It's not leftism. Yep. I mean, it's that
From
and
womb to tomb, we got this.
I mean, let's be real. Like, there's going to be a lot of people as well who might be distant from their family because their family are pieces of shit. Like, great. Like, if John Doyle grew up and turned into and was my dad, I wouldn't want to be around this fucking asshole. Now, I'm like more lucky than other people in that, like, I get along somewhat with my parents, but like I know a ton of people who have shitty parents. And guess what? You don't have to be with your shitty parents. Like, don't associate with shitty people if you don't want to, regardless if they're family or not, you know? Imagine thinking politics has you holed up in your room and you don't have to engage with your drunk uncle. No, you have to engage with your drunk uncle. To do otherwise is cringe. And yeah, family first, always. My dad is a piece of shit, can't confirm. No, exactly. I know tons of people who've had shitty parents, and they're shitty and you shouldn't have to associate it.
Anyways, last one. This one is epic.
Oh,
we
the
need a
last
woke
point.
tax. I'm not even kidding. We'll come up with some like PR strategy like, oh, the Marketplace
A woke
Neutrality
tax.
Act, whereas the consumer should be free to consume without political messaging, whatever. Something to appeal to the centrists, something.
How do you have something that's politically neutral as a product? Like, I can't. Like, it's one of those things where the criticism is like, you just think that everything's political. Everything is political. Like, even if you were to go, we're going to mandate all products be gray, no color. That is a political action. Like, no matter what you do, you're mandating neutrality. That is political. You can't escape the politics of this. Like, what? These people are so mentally empty. Try not to overuse stupid too much here. Jesus. Time to ban rock. No, time to ban everything. I think that's what we just got. A ban like everything that's political. So all of existence is now banned. It's done. We're over. Thought Slime has a good video on how attempts at centrism just end up leaning right. Well, I mean, this isn't just an attempt at centrism. He wants to ban this marketplace neutrality thing is because he hates woke corporations and he thinks that corporations are communism. I mean, he's already said that in this video, but that's what he thinks.
To appeal to the people who
This would
still
be the
think that
funniest.
bipartisanship is an option.
Sorry, Vito?
This would be the funniest, like, precursor to a like dystopian world where it's like they pass the Marketplace Neutrality Act and the result is that like the world nukes itself because it's like, oh, there is no neutrality, we can't do it. And then like you're left with like the burning ashes of that. Like,
all we eat is just a bland paste. With, I mean, what would be a neutral nutrient content?
oh, just like it's broken down like pure sugar
Yeah.
and like protein and vitamins, like nothing else.
Because any prepared food could be ethnic, and then you might be getting in the territory of politics. You gotta cut that shit out. Just
Well, any
bland paste
prepared
from now
food might
on.
be grown in a particular place by particular people, and therefore might have like certain assemblages that end up being politicized.
Yeah, it all must be
Like,
created in the neutral marketplace factory in Neutral Boulevard
yeah,
in a nondescript land
the
that
neutral
has
3D
been
printer that prints out, you know, your daily supply of bits.
and well, the factories are in every city because like any transportation could have to cross borders and therefore become political. So everyone just has their own bland nutrient paste factory in town that everybody goes at a non-political time to consume their non-political meal. Jesus.
Option at this point, but the end result will literally be a tax, a financial penalty whenever a big corporation, not a small business, a big corporation that primarily sells a product or service that is not related to politics does something that either promotes a political message or agenda or discriminates against one. Coca-Cola teaches people to be less white. Pay up, jackass. Companies move out of Georgia because they're restricting illegal voting measures and restricting abortions. Pay up. Something of that nature. Well, but John,
What about, I wonder if he's going to get to it, but like what about like Chick-fil-A or like or Hobby Lobby or all these the cake maker that wanted to not make cakes for gay people? Is that too
Because I'm young and I'm black
is
and my
that too
hat's down
edgy?
low.
Thank you, 5Tricks, for the
Sin.
subscriptions. Oh, that's also Nomdinet.
Yeah.
I should look over to the side
Listen,
first.
Jody. Listen, Jody.
I'm listening.
The Hobby Lobby smuggling things out of ISIS-held territory was a completely politically neutral act. Apolitical. Had nothing to do with politics.
True. I mean, I'm curious if he's doing one of these like, hold up, we're gonna get to a point. So we'll see if he addresses that. I can say, so what should I call? I was saying Strix, but I realized it's a 5. So 5Tricks. Is that how you want me to identify you? 5Tricks. Thank you for the follow. And hello, Progressive. It's both. Okay, cool.
who gets to decide that? Literally me and you and all of our friends. Like, we're going to take power and we get to call the shots. And frankly,
Okay,
we're
so you
being
could just
generous.
call the
But
shots.
seriously, woke taxes are necessary to take the culture back, because the reality is that a large part of American culture is rooted in consumerism.
Well, why would you call it the neutrality thing if it's just going to be whatever the fuck you want? Then just call it like the authoritarian right-wing fuck all lefties policy. Like, why this like weird appeal? Like, if you're going to go that mask off, why make it sound neutral at the start of it?
And that needs to be at the very least neutral, so as to not reinforce the leftist narratives that are being propagated by every other aspect of the culture. And with all these policies, they're not set in stone. Most of them don't even exist yet, but the purpose is to get the ball rolling here, get the gears turning. There are very smart, capable people working in right-wing politics or looking to get involved in right-wing politics. Many of them are watching these videos, and I trust them to do the right thing when the time comes. But anyways, I said I'd explain the absence, but we've been going for a while here, so I'll just say that the time was well spent.
We don't need to hear why his absence. That's the end of the video. We are done. I did want to say, he wants to pander to centrists. Yes, Benjamin. I think this is like the one thing that really annoys me, and I've tried to point this out in previous videos, because we've watched several figures now that a lot of people come to me being like, you're mischaracterizing them. They're not that right-wing. They're centrists. They're not even conservatives. And yet they say the exact same shit, which is like, even though on the face of it, what they're saying is like, we're against cancel culture. We're against woke corporations, and we're just against critical theory. But we're still like liberals. Yet then all of a sudden, in their next breath, they're like, we need to ban things being taught in school, and we need to suppress certain people. And like, that's the thing that frustrates me, is there's a type of liberal person that has bought into this myth that somehow all these figures that we're covering are just, they're just liberal people trying to have a conversation with ideas, and like, we should let them have this conversation because the best ideas will float to the top. Meanwhile, this person who's adopting similar language also wants to suppress leftist people, possibly murder them. We've heard him, he's saying he wants to bury communists in Minecraft. And also is against the marketplace of ideas in the first place because he thinks that we need to suppress all other speech so that only his conservative speech remains. It's really fucking annoying, and I wish the libs would fucking stop. These people aren't your friends. Okay?
Hello, my rebels. Hello, my rebels. I'm a good boy. I'm a weirdo.